public media from Fordham University. Come for the music, stay for the community. Listen at 90.7 FM or at WFUV.org.
Good morning and welcome into One-on-One, New York's longest-running sports call-in show. My name is Brendan Shorey, and I am joined here today by Caleb Stine and George Sfouggatakis. We got Angel Ducret on the board today and Brian Zhao on video. Man, are we excited to be back. But before we even look at what we're covering today, Caleb, George, how y'all doing today?
Doing all right. Good to be back live in the Rose Hill Studios, live on YouTube Live, and then, of course, pre-recorded 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. on 90.7 FM. Good to be here.
I'm doing great. It's great to be back in the studio. It's here twice over winter break, and now I'm happy to be back on the air on One-on-One, ready to talk some sports.
So excited to be back. For those of you that don't know, I was abroad last semester, had a whole semester off of being able to come in and talk sports on Saturday mornings. But don't worry, we are back, and we have a very exciting show for y'all today. It is that time of year, the NFL playoffs. We're going to start today by diving into these NFL games. We got two games later today. If you're hearing this on the radio, these games are already played. We got the Texans-Chiefs at 4:30. That one's lining up to be a good one. And Commanders-Lions at 8. The Lions' high-powered offense and the Commanders' high-powered offense looking to have an offensive battle in Detroit tonight. On Sunday, we have Rams, Eagles, and Ravens-Bills, which honestly might be the game of the week. Consensus shows that it's going to be the closest game out of all four. After looking at those playoff games, we got some New York football to look at, specifically the Jets. They are without a head coach right now. They are amid a lot of controversy with Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. Will they be back? Will they leave? Who are they bringing in to coach this team? Can they get some stability here? Well, along with that, we have an interview with a special guest. Me and Caleb interviewed him yesterday. That one is cool. You have to stick around if you want to see who that is. And then we dive into more football, the college football playoffs. We got the national championship Monday night, Ohio State, Notre Dame. That one should be a great one. Ohio State coming off a win against Texas. Notre Dame showing a gritty win against Penn State. Stay tuned for that. We stay in college after that. College basketball. Auburn's #1 team right now in the country. A lot of movement there in the top 25. A lot of stuff to break down there. And then George is going to lead us, talking about a little Knicks, a little bit of Nets, some New York basketball. We'll talk about how those teams are doing. And then we expand a little bit, talk about the general NBA, what teams are hot. Hint, it's the Cavs, Celtics, and Thunder. We'll look at some all-star predictions, give a few shout-outs there. And then we have another special interview, which was done a couple of weeks ago. St. Bonaventure's GM, who was previously working at ESPN, Adrian Wojnarowski, is going to be interviewed then. Finally, we'll switch over to hockey. We'll talk some Rangers, some Isles, some Devils, some teams that aren't doing too hot right now, some teams with higher expectations than how they are performing, and look at the general NHL. Finally, we'll get to baseball. We'll look at some big signings that happened recently, specifically with the Dodgers. It's looking to be a great one. But moving back to this coaching carousel, when we talk about that, we're going to be mainly focusing on the Jets and New York. So I want to take this time to look at another team that is under the spotlight looking for a new head coach, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of you fans probably hate the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of Giants fans on here. That's okay. But they are looking at hiring a new head coach. Deion Sanders' name is in the hat. A lot of Cowboys fans do not want to. I can see George, you're shaking your head right now.
Can't do it. I can't have Coach Prime come to Dallas. It's just not the right fit. Even though he was a Cowboy when he played, it's not a fit. He's not an NFL caliber coach. even though he has led Colorado to some success, they still have flaws in their team, and I feel like that comes from the coaching side. And if he decides to run an NFL team, I feel like it can only go downhill from there.
This was discussed on one-on-one about a month ago. Deion Sanders is a great college coach when it comes
and Deion, because Jerry wants control. He wants control, and that's the bottom line. He wants to bring in someone who will let him have a say, and that's what McCarthy did. McCarthy listened to Jerry. That's what our past few coaches have done. Deion will not do that. Deion will not take anything that Jerry Jones says. He will be a fully independent coach. He will do what he wants, when he wants, where he wants. He doesn't care what Jerry thinks. And so, even if he would be a good candidate, which I don't think he is. I completely agree. I think he's a good college coach. Just in terms of shaping those players, building them to be better men, both on and off the field. I'm not fully convinced that he's a good football coach when it comes to play calling. I mean, you look at Colorado's success, and yeah, they've picked it up recently, but you also bring in the best player in the country. You bring in I'm not as high on Shadur, but a pretty good quarterback. A pretty good quarterback, and you bring in a bunch of players you've been coaching from Jackson State to Colorado, and so you are able to have some success. We look at this bowl game against
And turn one of them into a Heisman winner.
Yeah. Like it's very impressive, but then you look at the bowl game against BYU where they got blown out. And you look like they were out of the running for the Big 12 championship in his first year. They missed it the second year. It was closer, but they missed it. And I just haven't been convinced that he's a great coach offensively or even defensively for the Colorado Buffaloes.
I feel like he's more of a people coach and a player coach instead of a football coach. He's like a very high energy. He's very caring of his players more off the field than on the field. It's like he brings a different type of energy to the locker room, and that's something that I feel like wouldn't translate well into an NFL locker room because they're already developed as players. Like the Cowboys have a relatively not old, but they have like a more experienced roster. They don't have as many rookies as they once had, and I feel like that's less valuable to a locker room when you have more experienced players.
Yeah, and I mean, moving on from Deion, I mean, the Cowboys just interviewed Kellen Moore. They have a bunch of names on the list, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, names like that they kind of waited a little too long to interview. They held on to McCarthy a little too long to get those interviews in before the Lions playoff game this week. I don't know how they managed to get Kellen Moore on the phone the past couple of days with the Eagles having a game soon. But they
I don't like that look from him. Taking an interview while your team's in the playoffs right now, I don't like that.
I don't love it, but I don't hate him as a head coach, to be honest.
I don't either, but I feel like while your team is in the playoffs, you shouldn't be focusing on what's going on for next season. You should be focusing locked in on what's going on with your team while you're in a playoff race trying to win a Super Bowl. I feel like that shows a lack of dedication to his team, to be completely honest.
No, I can see that. So I just want to wrap up this. Who do you guys think the Cowboys should hire? I'll start with you, Caleb.
I actually do like Kellen Moore. He's better than a Deion. I also think that he's got one foot out the door with Philly right now, with the mentality that he's showing with the taking the interview. He's not all in on the Eagles. I think he's going to be good in Dallas.
I like Ben Johnson, but I also wouldn't hate Robert Saleh, to be completely honest.
Interesting.
I think the Jets sold by firing him. I feel like he just didn't have the right roster built around his coaching style, and I feel like the Cowboys could benefit from the way he coaches.
I agree. I like Ben Johnson. I really like Ben Johnson. I would love to see Jerry go and grab Ben Johnson as the head coach, and if he could manage to bring in Robert Saleh as the DC, that would be a very, very unbeatable team with Ben Johnson's offensive mind and Saleh's defensive prowess. That would be a team to look out for in the NFC and the NFC East. That is going to do it here in this segment. If you have any questions or comments and you want to call in today, go ahead. We want to hear from you. That number is 718-817-2750. I repeat, 718-817-2750. And we will be right back with some NFL talk. Stay tuned.
What's up, everyone? I'm Evan Harkin, your New York Jets beat reporter for the 2024 season. Stay up to date with all things white and green from MetLife Stadium. From Aaron Rodgers' touchdowns to Sauce Gardner interceptions, I've got you covered. So join me and Ken Green on Twitter at @EvHarkin and stay locked in with the JETS on WFUV, your home for New York sports.
And welcome back into One-on-One. Brendan and Shorey here, joined by Stine and George Sfouggatakis. And we have some NFL to get into. We have 2 games today, 2 games tomorrow. It's playoff time. It is the NFL divisional round, And a big one to get into is the Chiefs-Texans game. That's the soonest one. It is today at 4:30 Eastern Time. The Chiefs are 9-point favorites right now. It is not looking good for the Texans as of now. It's supposed to be a very cold game, 23 degrees at game time. Typically, those are a lot of the ground and pound games. These teams will see the cold and they will choose, run that clock, pound the football, and it might be a low-scoring game. Looking at these defenses and the temperature, it's looking to be a low-scoring, close one. Caleb, George, who do you think takes this one?
I think the Chiefs got it. I think the Chiefs got it pretty handily. I mean, they already played the Texans 3-4 weeks ago, so that was taken care of. And yeah, I think the Chiefs got it.
I don't like the 9-point spread. I don't like that at all.
I feel like Chiefs or the Texans?
For either team, I feel like that. Especially for the Texans, I feel like it should be a close game. And I think I have faith in CJ Stroud. I saw an edit on Instagram the other day where it was like 4 years ago. It was like the whole map was rooting for the Chiefs to beat the Pats, and now it's like the whole map is rooting for the Texans to beat the Chiefs. I'm very sick of this Chiefs dynasty. I don't like Patrick Mahomes. I despise Travis Kelce, and it's like I hate having a one team rule a sport. Like I didn't like when the Warriors were running basketball. I didn't like when the Astros were running baseball. I don't like when the Pats were running football. Now the Chiefs. I feel like we need to have a little switch up. And I feel like the Texans are a team that can beat the Chiefs. I know they're shorthanded, missing two of their receivers, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell. But I feel like if the Texans run the ball through Joe Mixon, they can split the Chiefs defense until the Chiefs have a very solid defensive line. I feel like through Joe Mixon they can beat the Chiefs.
I can honestly see a realistic world in which the Texans take this one from the Chiefs. I think I kind of mentioned it. It's a cold game. I think it's going to be close. I think both teams are going to be running that clock, running the football. I think it's going to be very low scoring and close. But to me, it comes down to the defenses, and I just think that this Texans secondary is too good for the Chiefs to be able to throw against. I mean, the Chiefs defense.
But you have to look at who the Chiefs have out as their wideouts. Juwan Jennings, Xavier Worthy, two of the fastest guys in the game. I feel like they can break through that Texans wall. I don't want to see that happen by any means. The Chiefs wall. I don't want to see that happen by any means. I despise the Chiefs, but I could see a world where they find a way to split that defense.
I hear you, but looking at like how this Texans defense has performed recently, and you look at Stingley and Kamari Lassiter, who have been two of the best lockdown corners this year. Very underrated guy, Lassiter, by the way. But you look at these two who are playing on the outsides, and I think that they could easily go, and I think they can go and lock up, whether it's Xavier Worthy, Marquise Brown, even DeAndre Hopkins. I think they can go and shut those guys down, and then it really comes down to, can the Texans stop the run? And I think that they can. I think their linebackers have been playing great this year too. Henry To'oTo'o, outstanding guy, outstanding year, breakout year for him too. So I think that there is actually a realistic path for the Texans to take this one against the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs are that.
I think this is going to be a lot closer than people are making it out to be. I think this is going to be, the second most competitive playoff matchup we see. We'll get into what the most competitive one will be. But the Texans are definitely an underrated team. I think they surpassed a lot of expectations. That 9-6 record isn't exactly representative of how they're going to perform against the 14-1 Chiefs. I think it'll be very close.
And a big thing for me, I mentioned their secondary, but you look at last week, and I was 100% on the Chargers last week. I thought the Chargers were going to kill them. But you look at...
No way.
I did.
That's crazy.
Why?
I was high on that Chargers defense, and I was high on Herbert, because Herbert had thrown maybe 4 or 5 picks all year. He did not throw interceptions this
the same mentality going for the Texans.
Yeah. I mean, they shocked me last week, so I'm not letting them do it again.
I don't feel like their record is a good representation of how good this team is.
Not at all.
I think they just had stretches that, like during the season, where they just played poorly. Like that, you look at that Ravens game, and that was not the same team that game as it was last week against the Chargers.
Oh, for sure. They were completely different games. They looked like two different teams, and they did this, and they beat up against the Chargers while missing Tank Dell, who is a fantastic receiver, and Stephon Diggs. But Stephon Diggs is, I have iffy opinions on Stephon Diggs, but I feel like this Texans team, what we saw against the Chargers, we can easily see against the Chiefs.
So good game. That one will be at 4:30 today. There's another one following it right after. It's the Commanders at the Lions. That one is at 8 p.m. Eastern. The Lions are currently 8.5-point favorites against the Commanders, and I don't see a world in which the Commanders win or even cover.
No, neither do I. Especially at home in Detroit. I think it's pretty much wraps. The Lions, I think right now, when it comes to sentimentality, they're America's team, right? They're the most popular team. I think that people want to have win, right, for now, because it's not the Cowboys, because the Cowboys aren't in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm high on Campbell's men. I think the Lions will get it done. Commanders, it was a nice run. It was good to see, right? They definitely surpassed expectations, right?
100%.
I had bets going. I'm over 21. I had bets going with a few guys of if the Commanders were gonna have more than 8 wins, right? And that was a valid bet to have. That was a solid line to have.
Before you saw how good Jaden Daniels was,
There you go.
New head coach, rookie quarterback.
Right, 13-win season. Commanders did very
Terry
well.
McLaurin.
I think the Lions take this by 2 touchdowns.
2.
That's big.
I have him on 1 touchdown. I think the Lions were Lions are a good team, fantastic team. I think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I feel like the Commanders, there isn't enough love for the Commanders. I feel like what we saw against the Vikings, a team that was heavy favorites going into that game, well, at least like fan favorites going into that game, the Vikings, people want to see Sam Darnold succeed, want to see Sam Darnold get paid, but I feel like when you look at the team like the Vikings, and the Commanders just obliterated them. It wasn't even a game. They attacked Sam Darnold. Even though the O-line was weak, they were attacking Sam Darnold heavy. Bobby Wagner had a great game. I feel like they have players on this Commanders roster who have playoff experience, a Super Bowl experience like Bobby Wagner. I feel like that's going to translate to a more competitive game than what people are thinking against the Lions.
I think the Lions run away with this one. I mean, you look at that team, and to me, it's a bunch of guys who are friends who play football for fun. I mean, you look at that team and the chemistry there, and you look at whether it's their celebrations or all the videos you see of them online with each other. I mean, I think that's just a group of guys who are tight and have insane chemistry, who are going out there and just having fun on the weekends. And I think that's a very hard thing to beat, especially when you have players of a very high caliber like Jahmyr Gibbs, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, even Sam Laporta, who hasn't gotten a whole lot of love this year because he had a down year from last year.
All times had a down year this year.
Yeah, but even like you look at that, and there isn't a position on the offense right now that I could look at and say that the Commanders have an advantage. And that's a huge part. And then you flip it over to the defensive side, and you think they are very injured, like their defense is horrible. That's not the case. Aaron Glenn has somehow kept this defense intact in a way that they are not making every single game an offensive shootout. They're actually still able somehow to hold teams to a respectable amount of points and then have a good offensive game and get the win, which I think is huge. And I think that's really what's going to be the difference maker tonight with the Lions. That one is at 8 p.m. Again, Lions 8.5-point favorites. There are also 2 games tomorrow. Rams, Eagles at 3. And I know I have a little bit of a hot take on that one. I am biased. I will say that. I am 100% biased. But I think there's a world.
Eagles.
No one does.
No one likes the Eagles.
But I think there is a legit world in which the Rams beat the Eagles. I don't think that's way out of this world to say.
I don't think it's way out of this world to say. I also don't think it'll happen, right? Jalen Hurts, not a great game against Green Bay.
I don't think he's that good.
He didn't break 150 yards, and at home against Green Bay, and that was a gritty game, and it was a gritty win for the Eagles. But I don't hate the take. I also don't agree with it. I do think the Eagles are gonna take this because that was a wake up call for them, that game against Green Bay, and even though they eventually won, there was pressure there, and pressure enough to where they're going to be motivated enough and locked in enough to beat this Rams team. Probably not handily, but definitely.
I don't think the Rams have a shot at beating them. I really don't. Even though it's only a 6.5 point spread, I don't think the Rams have a shot. I feel like it's a different team. This Eagles with Saquon is just a different look. The Saquon had an MVP caliber year. I feel like he's unstoppable. He's just an unstoppable force.
I see. For me, it really comes down to looking at how the Rams played last week, and then you look at their game against the Eagles earlier this year, and Saquon went for 250 plus on them, which is crazy. But that was a different team. I mean, this Rams team has rookies on that defensive side of the ball who are making big-time plays. I mean, you look at Jared Verse, you look at Braden Fisk. These are two guys who have come into their own down the late stretch of the season and have really started to become big playmakers for that defense. And I think that's the big part. I mean, you look at how they played the Vikings last week. 9 sacks is insane. 6 sacks in the first half. Yeah. And it wasn't just one guy who's getting his – everyone was getting their share. Everybody was eating last week. And I think that's going to be the key in this game, especially against an Eagles offensive line that is 100% one of the best in the league. It's going to come down to, can the Rams generate pressure? Can they send 5 or more guys and get to Hurts quick without Hurts being able to get through his progressions? And I think, honestly, I don't think Hurts can. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's holding back that team. I think it's the Eagles' defense that the Rams need to worry about. Fantastic defense, great corners, and I think, honestly, the Rams will generate pressure. They'll get to Hurts, and their offense will do just enough to win. So that one is tomorrow at 3. Finally, the game we've been waiting to talk about, Ravens and the Bills tomorrow at 6:30. Ravens are 1.5-point favorites. George, I'm going to throw this one to you. Who do you got there?
I got the Bills. I feel like it's going to be a very tight game. It's MVP versus MVP candidate. It's MVP candidate versus MVP candidate. And I feel like the Bills just are the better team. I feel like they just have to keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket and force him to throw the ball and don't let him move. I feel like that's the difference maker between winning and losing this game.
Completely agree. Took the words right out of my mouth. The most dangerous force between these two teams
Lamar Jackson moving
is Lamar Jackson's run game.
Yeah,
without a doubt. And I think Josh Allen has had moments. He's had a pretty consistent year. He's had some shaky moments. And if the Ravens defense, can allow for more of those moments to happen, even though it is at home, it's gonna be close. I like the Bills in this one. They have the energy. They have the home field advantage. And the thing about there being the most electric and threatening force being Lamar Jackson's run game, so obviously, is that the Bills are preparing for that. That's what they're doing. And if they can lock that down, it won't be close.
But haven't teams been doing that all year, trying to prevent Lamar Jackson from moving?
Well, certainly, yeah. But I think it's just you're right. I don't love. I mean, the Bills' defense is solid enough, but we'll also see what the conditions are too with the snow.
I'm sure it'll be cold and snowy probably.
Right. So that'll definitely play a factor.
So it's gonna be 17 degrees.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
And that's a problem for the Bills because they're just gonna feed Derrick Henry, and that's
right.
It's a two-headed
monster. Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm with you guys. I think the Bills are going to take this. I think they create enough splash plays. I think they make Lamar pass. I think they force mistakes. And I think Josh Allen is literally Superman on earth. Carried that team on his back all year and will continue to do it. The Bills are my Super Bowl pick. I have them coming out of the AFC and taking it over the Lions. Unfortunately, that's going to be all the NFL talk for now. We have a very, very cool interview coming up with Lee Steinberg. Stay tuned for that.
Hey, it's Jazz McAdams here calling you to tune in to WFUV Sports One-on-One, New York's longest running sports call-in show. With hot takes covering all sports from the 5 boroughs and beyond, to interviews with some of the biggest names in sports media. We're live Saturdays on the WFUV Sports YouTube from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then later on 90.7 FM from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Come join us next Saturday for One-on-One.
Welcome back to One-on-One. I'm Brendan Shorey alongside Caleb Stine. We are pleased to be joined today by Lee Steinberg. Steinberg is a professional sports agent and lawyer who graduated from Cal Berkeley in 1970 and earned his JD from Berkeley in 1973. In his career, Steinberg has represented athletes such as Troy Aikman, Warren Moon, Ben Roethlisberger, Pat Mahomes, and Steve Young. He's represented the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft a record 8 times and represented 64 total first-round picks. Steinberg has secured over $4 billion across 300 clients and has generously given over $1 billion to various charities around the world. Mr. Steinberg, thanks for coming on today.
My pleasure.
So glad to have you on. We're both very excited to hear what you have to say, so let's jump right in. What attracted you to the industry and your role as a sports agent initially, and what continues to attract you to it over the years?
When I started back in 1975, there really wasn't a field of sports agentry. Teams still were in a position to be able to hang up the phone when an agent called and say, we don't deal with agents. So it evolved over time. Part of it is the concept of getting to know a young person and developing a lifetime plan for them and helping them get ready for the draft out of college. And then what we ask them to do is be role models and go back to the high school, collegiate, and professional community and set up charitable programs. So a high school scholarship fund, work with the church or Boys and Girls Club at the university, go back and endow some form of a scholarship, and then at the pro level set up a charitable foundation that tackles the problem. So work done in the form of running back has just put the 200 single parent into the first home they'll ever own by making a down payment. Or Patrick Mahomes has a charity called 15 in the Mahomies that helps with at-risk kids and kids that can't afford meals. So it's watching the athletes mature over time and become role models never grows old.
How have you noticed NIL in college impact the role of agents for professional athletes?
It's a revolution, so that what it is the concept of unforeseen consequences. In other words, they passed this to help players that were sitting on a college campus and saw their jersey sold in the student store, saw the big TV contracts, maybe they came from disadvantaged households, and they couldn't work during the school year to supplement their income. They probably would have been happy with $5,000 more a year for players in that category. Instead, what it's turned into is a recruitathon where you have alums come together in collectives and they offer big money to high school players going to college, and then they take a second bite at the apple in the transfer portal, so that all of a sudden you have a quarterback committing to LSU. They offered him allegedly $3 or $4 million. Michigan puts together a package of $14 million. The player decommits to LSU and goes to Michigan. So what you're seeing is the evolution of probably 4 super conferences with the alumni base to offer big money, inducements for players to come, and everyone else will be at a lesser level. And those 4 super conferences probably will evolve in a way where they won't end up using the NCAA anymore. They'll do their own contract negotiations with the networks and set up their own rules. So no one really foresaw this, and the consequence of conference realignment and gambling and NIL all coming in rapid succession creates a college atmosphere that no one can recognize.
So still talking about that NIL process, we are curious how that signing process with all these different athletes has been changed due to people having to target these younger athletes as opposed to trying to go and sign older athletes that are further along in college.
So what you have now is it goes all the way back to the 15-year-old quarterback in high school who decides he's going to brand himself, so he markets himself on multiple platforms of content supply. And now by the time he gets to the recruiting process, he's an entity. And so it's like free agency for high school players because they can bid off the universities against themselves and get more and more largesse. Well, again, the concept was to give an athlete $5,000 more, but it's morphed into a reality where someone might make $15 million, and so it's a very different process, and it's completely out of control.
With the Jets currently interviewing for head coaches, you have Slowick in the mix, Arthur Smith as well. Who do you see as the best fit for the Jets at this current moment?
Well, it just depends who they can get. There's 2 routes. There's the offensive coordinator at Detroit, or the defensive back coach, Aaron Glenn. So one concept is to take the best assistant from a winning system, and so that's one route they can take. And then there are former head coaches. Just to show you how dynamic it is, look at the effect that Jim Harbaugh had his first year with the Chargers, or the effect that Sean Payton had with the Denver Broncos, or Dan Quinn with the Washington Commanders. In each of those situations, basically the same roster, but the right coach turns it around. The Jets' problem has been a lack of stability. And what they need to do is have alignment within their organization, hire the best coach, and then sit back and let him coach. Don't keep firing people. It's a massive readjustment for players. Every time there's a new coach, it could be a new offensive or defensive system. The relationship between players and assistant coaches. So when you look around the league at a team like the Patriots, who had a tough last year but dominated, or you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, you realize if you're going to have a draft, forget the players. The draft ought to be of top head coaches and great general managers. That should be who you draft, because those are the people that make the difference.
And speaking of the Chiefs, Pat Mahomes, one of your clients, is no stranger to the playoffs. So we're kind of curious, how does your role change when he's competing in the postseason versus when he's in the regular season?
So what happens is the playoffs, and especially the Super Bowl, become this premier marketing event. And they've got the ability to transform someone from a talented football player into a household name. So when a player gets that far, it has a transcendent effect on their brand, on their recognition, and they go into the round of early morning and late night talk shows, the cover of People magazine, and they become a household name. Well, football today is so dominant that 130 million people watched the Super Bowl last year. It's by 2-1 the most popular sport, but it also had 70 of the top 100 Nielsen-rated television shows. So everything is amplified. It's become the most popular form of entertainment. When you get to these playoffs, the numbers of people watching give you the opportunity to leap out of just being a good athlete and become a household name. So the job is a little more complex at this stage of the year.
What do you look for in your youngest athletes, and how do you predict potential? How do you roadmap young athletes when there's a lot of room to go in all sorts of different directions?
So I try to, first of all, look for athletes that will be role models, that are self-starters, that have pristine work habits, and because what you see on the field is like the tip of the iceberg. These players are in shape all year round. They're working out. They're using new methods like hyperbaric oxygen, stem cells, and red light to train. But what you're looking for is someone who, in adversity, the quarterback's throwing a couple of interceptions in this example, the crowd is starting to boo, the game's getting out of hand. What does that player do in adversity, in critical situations? Are they able to compartmentalize, adopt a quiet mind, tune out extraneous stimuli, and elevate their level of play to take a team to and through victory? So you're looking for that, the ability to perform in adversity.
And so a big day every year for both you and your clients is the NFL draft. And so can you walk us through those few days leading up to and the day of the draft and what it looks like from your perspective?
So you have a player going through scouting. He's training somewhere at a training facility to be evaluated in football at the NFL scouting combine. Then they have campus visits. So at each stage, you're looking for a team, 2 teams, 3 teams that actually have enough interest to take a player off the board quickly. So I'm infused with all sorts of information because I'm talking to all sorts of teams. And I have a pretty good sense by draft day of where a player will go, especially if they're at the top of the draft. And so there's all these behind the scenes discussions taking place. And now you have draft day, the most exciting day of the year, because you have the fruition of an athlete who since Pop Warner has been aspiring for this moment. Normally, we're doing a draft in the front room of that player, and he has assembled all of his close friends, which you can't do if you go to the draft site. So most of the players stay home. They assemble everyone with them. As much as I predicted it, the tension sort of ratchets up. Draft time is not real time, it's water torture time. Every minute is like an hour, every hour is like an eternity, and drip, 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 water torture. So, and then eventually the player gets drafted, and there's joy and ecstasy, and everyone close to him goes absolutely crazy in that micro moment, and it's my favorite day of the year.
Finally, having represented quarterbacks from the 90s to today, what has been the biggest difference you've seen from the business side with the market value of these players, specifically in the quarterback position, absolutely skyrocketing over the past 25, 30 years?
So with the evolution of modern football, which has so much passing in it, it becomes impossible to make the playoffs and the Super Bowl without having a franchise quarterback. So let's define that as someone that you build around for 10 to 12 years, that you win because of rather than with. And that player is so essential and so hard to develop. You might have a draft that has 5 first-round quarterbacks, and you look back a couple of years later, and only 2 of them have made it, in a big-time way. So it's an excruciatingly difficult process, and those teams that have them are paying more money to that position than they ever have before. And what happens is, someone like Dak Prescott, who hasn't taken his team to the Super Bowl, becomes someone who ends up at the top of the market, because he's, if not Dak Prescott, then what does Dallas do? It could take years to find someone. So it's pretty clear when you have quarterbacks like Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Allen and Joe Burrow that they're the guy. But what gets more difficult is if the player's sort of on the edge between you thinking he's a franchise quarterback and his performance, and then what do you do when he becomes a free agent? If you don't re-sign that player, and that's how they make mistakes with Daniel Jones, for example, because if not him, who? And it's a difficult process. You have to be right at the top of the draft, and then it's not as simple as drafting him. You have to develop that player in a meaningful way.
And to kind of follow up on that, does that kind of mentality differ between when you're talking about quarterbacks in terms of franchise quarterback and you're talking about other positions on the field? Like we've seen the running back positional value kind of decrease over the past 10 or so years. Is it different in that kind of area?
Yes, what's happened because of free agency and the modern passing game is that 3 or 4 positions became exalted in terms of their value. Left tackle, who protects the blind side of the quarterback. An edge rusher who can sack the quarterback and put pressure, shut down corner. And then occasionally we have a blip in the market. So a couple of years ago, we saw wide receivers start to explode under the salary cap. So it's positional. It's what the team thinks is absolutely irreplaceable to win. And those players have more and more leverage, and other positions drop back.
Well, that's going to be all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Steinberg. We really appreciate it, and we'll be back with more one-on-one after this break.
Anytime, and I see you got Fragment behind you, so it's a good visual.
Your host for On the Hill, the flagship podcast of Fordham Athletics.
We'll be talking about everything from football at Moglia Stadium
to hoops at the historic Rose Hill Gym,
discussing the ins and outs of all Ram athletes, teams, and big games.
If you want to be part of the Ramily, then listen to On the Hill from WFUV Sports.
And we are back to one-on-one. You just heard an interview with Lee Steinberg, a professional sports agent and lawyer. Caleb and I had the opportunity to interview him yesterday. Great interview. Now it's time to stay in that same realm. If we're talking NFL offseason, I know the playoffs are still going on, but there are only 8 teams left. And every other team is now worried about what they are going to do in the offseason to be one of those 8 teams next year. But namely the Jets. The Jets were a disaster this year. The Aaron Rodgers era was way, way worse than they had hoped and they had expected. And now they're out of head coach after firing Robert Saleh this year. Aaron Rodgers is a free agent. Devontae Adams is a free agent. The Jets are kind of in the middle of nowhere and kind of have to figure out which direction they want to go. And that really starts at the top. And that starts with who you want to put in charge, who you're going to hire as your head coach. And they've interviewed guys. They've interviewed guys like Ron Rivera, Rex Ryan, Matt Nagy, some veteran head coaches who have been there before. But they've also interviewed guys like Steve Spagnuolo, Darren Rizzi, Vance Joseph, Arthur Smith, Bobby Slowick, even Aaron Glenn, guys who are breaking out at either the offensive or defensive coordinator spot, and it's about time for them to get a head coaching position. And the Jets can go one of 2 ways here. Caleb, we'll start with you. Which direction do you think they go?
Well, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens because Steinberg made a great point, right? That the Jets are ravaged with instability. They're not ravaged with poverty-level talent at all. They have those guys. And obviously we'll get into the Aaron Rodgers drama later. But what they need right now is they have talented OCs, DCs, assistant coaches interviewing. And so I actually don't really think it matters as much. I think the Jets need stability up front. And obviously that starts with the front office. There's no stability there. And you get that and you get stability. You bring all the pieces that are there because all the pieces that are there, whoever they get in the coaching seat is going to be high quality, is going to be talented enough. They're going to know what they're doing. And when you got guys like Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson as part of your on-field personnel, that's fine from a talent perspective. Organize it, stabilize it. The Jets will be fine. I don't know if it'll happen, though.
I happen to think that the Jets just need a relative rebuild. Like they need to pick one player like Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson and rebuild around them. And I feel like that rebuild has to start with the draft because I don't know who you draft for the Jets. That's the thing. You want a quarterback, but you also need some help on defense because Sauce Gardner is frankly overrated. And I feel like there's no direct way to go with this draft. And I think you go get a quarterback, but all the best quarterbacks are going to be gone. You really want to go pick up Jaden Milroe? He's garbage. And I feel like you have to also look at the coaching system. You have to look at what coach you bring in, and then you have to look at who you draft around that coach. You have to find your future built around a coach. And I like Rex Ryan. I don't hate the interview with Rex Ryan.
It made me chuckle a little bit. Yeah.
I
don't hate it.
It made me think about 2014, back when we were young,
Right.
watching football, and all of a sudden the camera pans over, you see Rex Ryan on the sidelines and Mark Sanchez taking a snap. That's what I think about when I think of Rex Ryan, and he's a great coach. They had a little success under him, but then you also have to look. Do you want to try something new with a younger coach or a first-time head coach? And there's so much up in the air with the Jets. There's so much that needs to be fixed. And I feel like it's impossible to put a finger on what exactly has to be fixed. But the first thing you have to do is figure out, do you want to rebuild or do you want to keep these guys and try to build a team with this?
I think you keep the guys. I think the talent that Caleb mentioned, I think the talent's there.
They don't gel. We saw it this year. They don't work.
I think that's where the head coach comes in. I think you need a guy who can come in, and I'm honestly torn here because
should they go get Mike McCarthy, give Aaron Rodgers a little reboot?
No. For Jets fans, you don't want that. You don't want that. Coming from a Cowboys fan, you don't want that. But I think I'm very torn for the coach because you look at Robert Saleh, a very defensive-minded head coach coming from the Niners as their defensive coordinator when he was first hired to the Jets, and a very defensive-minded, defensive-focused head coach, and you could see that's how the team played. And their defense was one of the best in the league, but their offense was struggling mightily. And then after Saleh got fired and Ulbrich took over, it flipped. Their defense started struggling and being very average, but their offense took leaps, and they started to become an actual decent, functional offense as opposed to who knows what they were in Robert Saleh's time. Who knows that offense had no identity whatsoever. And so that's why I'm torn, is because if you bring in a defensive mind like we saw with Saleh, the defense is going to be amazing. But then I'm worried about the offense. But then if you bring in a more offensive guy, I feel like we're going to see the same thing that we saw with Ulbrich, where that offense is fine, but the defense lacks. And I think that's where I'm torn between going with a guy like Vance Joseph, who could bring in and kind of recreate that Saleh kind of energy, or if you want to go with a Bobby Slowick, or even like an Arthur Smith.
Spagnuolo?
I don't hate Spagnuolo, but I think it's the era of the young coaches. I think the young coaches are in, except for like those few particular coaches like Andy Reid, like Tomlin. But I think right now it's
Sean Payne.
Yep, I think it's the guys like Ben Johnson, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, who bring the creative. They bring the creativity to their offensive scheme, and that's kind of what's in right now. So that's why I would go with a younger guy.
But I feel like an older guy would go better with guys like Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers.
That depends on if they bring them back. That's the thing.
I don't know about this before, but I saw on Instagram where they were thinking about possibly trading him to the Steelers. Rodgers and Garrett Wilson in a package.
And Garrett for who?
I don't know.
Would they get Russell Wilson out of that?
Russell Wilson wants out, I think. People are saying Russell Wilson's might sign a multi-year deal with the Giants.
Interesting.
I saw. Well, Devontae took
multi-years with the Giants is crazy.
Devontae took to, I think it was Instagram recently, and made some comments about the Packers. And
I also, do you guys see the comments that Sauce Gardner made T. Higgins, where someone made a post like tagged Sauce Gardner and said, "Tell T. Higgins to come to the Jets," and T. Higgins said, "I will definitely not be telling him to do that."
Huh. Interesting.
So I think Sauce Gardner wants out too. I think the whole team just doesn't want to play.
They need new leadership. They need it bad.
Yeah.
It's just a dysfunctional front office and coaching staff, and they need basically a full on, not rebuild, but they need a
facelift. They don't need a complete rebuild. They just need a little freshening up, a little working around the edges.
Speaking of freshening up, Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, they're not free agents. So the big question is, what is Rodgers' future like in New York? Because we have seen a couple of very, very poor years from him. Achilles injury, brutal for him, brutal for the Jets. But even since then, he's not lived up to expectations. So do they bring him back?
He's old.
I don't know why they would. I mean, I think they would only from a kind of brand perspective. When it comes to actual quality on the field, I think you can go out and figure it out with someone else other than Rodgers. And
go back and get Sam Darnold.
You have clock is beyond ticking. The quality on the field's not there. You can get equal quality with much more time. You can develop a quarterback that way.
Well, do you
or possibly with Rodgers and Davante Adams, you can sign straight up and try to get a quarterback in the draft.
Or do you sign Rodgers and then go grab a quarterback like the Jackson Dart in like the second or third round, even fourth, and try that and have him learn behind Rodgers like Rodgers did with Favre, like Jordan Love did with Rodgers.
It's a different Aaron Rodgers. It's not the same Aaron Rodgers that it was. That Jordan Love
veteran quarterback.
It is, but he's a little off his rocker.
He's a little off his rocker, but he's still one of the greatest passers ever played in football.
100%, but I feel like you have to look at it as two different Aaron Rodgers.
Two different Aaron Rodgers.
You have the Aaron Rodgers before, and you have the Aaron Rodgers now. It's two completely different people.
I think that's the question right now. Is Aaron Rodgers' lack of quality because he's older than Rusty, or is it because he's gotten worse? Because those are two different things.
I think he's gotten worse. I think he's gotten worse.
I think he's gotten worse because he's gotten older.
So that's a separate camp. I agree with George in the sense that I don't think that his veteranness as a quarterback is as attractive for a dart to learn under.
It's not the same as someone learning under Drew Brees.
Agree.
I agree. I still think, look at his career, look at how good he's been, especially in Green Bay, and he's still someone I think you could learn from. Whether it may not be his on-field current, like what he does on the field right now, but
you're talking about his knowledge and like practice.
His knowledge,
and whatnot.
I could see that abilities to kind of figure out what the defense does. He's always been a very accurate passer. I mean, even if he's not quite as accurate anymore, kind of what he sees on the field, and that's something that you can pass down to a rookie quarterback like a Jackson Dart.
I can see that. I don't know. I'm a little iffy on Aaron Rodgers. I don't have my feet completely set on the idea of him training another quarterback because I don't see him the same way.
So
he only threw 11 picks this year, which isn't that bad.
So that's not horrible. It's decent.
It's less than Mahomes.
Mahomes had a bad year, 100%. I was on that train.
That brought a tear to my eye.
So if he does leave, which seems to be the consensus here, then the Jets don't bring him back. Where does he go? And does he bring Devontae Adams with him?
Aaron Rodgers to our New Orleans Saint.
Really?
Yeah, I see that.
I kind of want to see him on the Vikings.
Dude, Vikings would be funny.
Just the Brett Favre trajectory.
They wouldn't do that.
No, they wouldn't. But I think it would be funny to see him follow the exact same path Brett Favre did.
Yeah, they wouldn't do that. The Vikings are a competitive team. The Vikings just need a more experienced quarterback, not in the Aaron Rodgers way. They need a quarterback with a little bit of playoff experience. I feel like that's what they need because Sam Darnold had a brutal game.
He probably lost $10 million on his next contract.
But he's going to make that back with endorsements like that.
He is, but that's a bummer for him. And it's a bummer for Aaron Rodgers as his time in New York is most likely over. That's going to do it for us on this segment, talking about the Jets and all their issues, how they can fix them. But we have a game coming up on Monday, college football playoffs. Ohio State Notre Dame, and we will be
football weekend.
We will be right back to talk about that.
You're listening to WFUV, New York.
And welcome back into One-on-One. We just talked the Jets and all their issues. Now it's time to turn to the other football playoffs, the college football playoffs. And we have the long-awaited national championship on Monday night. Ohio State versus Notre Dame, two teams that no one really thought were going to make it this far. Two teams that were not a top 4 team and got a bye. Two teams that had to play their way through. Ohio State didn't even win their conference. And now we see an Ohio State team who looks like the best team in the country, the way they've been playing these past few weeks, coming in and playing a Notre Dame team whose defense has been stifling teams recently and creating big plays to win them some games. It should be a great one. It has been long awaited, I know. Too long of a break between the semifinals and the finals. That might not be a hot take. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Caleb, who you got?
I got Ohio State in this one. I think I became an Ohio State truther as soon as Ohio State pretty much ravaged Tennessee. Shout out Thomas Tisdale on that one. But it was just, I saw the truth for the first time, and I was like, yeah, they're probably going to win the entire
He's
season.
shaking his head back there.
No, I wanted Tennessee to win. I don't know why Tisdale's going to be mad right now. I wanted Tennessee to win. TBO. But anyway, yeah, I think Ohio State's got this pretty much in the bag. Notre Dame, I'm not high on the whole independent gimmick in 2025. Let's leave that in any other year but this one.
Let's win a conference now.
Let's figure it out.
There's four of them. Let's go.
It's time to grow up. Your mom doesn't need to put on your pants on.
But they're playing in the minor league still.
Right. Let's learn how to cook. Let's
They're in
learn
the
how to
national championship, by the way, and they're playing in the minor leagues. I don't know how those two go hand in hand.
Well, no, it's not minor leagues, but I just don't like the independent gimmick for the sake of the independent gimmick. I think the quality on the field is definitely there.
They're there.
I got Ohio State in this one still. It'll be close, but I got Ohio State.
I think based on my last two statements, I think we can come to the conclusion that I got Notre Dame. I have my faith in Riley Leonard. I think Riley Leonard is going to be a fantastic quarterback for the rest of his career, and he's going to produce in the NFL.
With the Jets?
With the Giants.
Okay.
That's the Giants number 3 overall pick.
Riley Leonard, you are a Giant. I do have the one thing I'm feeling on is Notre Dame's run game. Jeremiah Love has been so on and off. He hasn't been consistent all year. But the defense has been fantastic. And the only problem is you're going up against Will Howard and Jeremiah Smith, who is the best wide receiver in all football. In all of college football, I think we can come to that agreement that Jeremiah Smith is the best wide receiver in college football. Ryan Williams will be there next year, though. That's a conversation for another time. But 8.5 point spread. I don't know about that.
A little disrespectful.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
For a championship game.
They have no faith in Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is gonna come from behind in the third quarter. They're gonna be down at half, and they're gonna be down at the half, not third quarter, second half. Be down at the half, and they're gonna come back. They're gonna be down a little less at the end, and they're gonna come back and win the game. I think Notre Dame is gonna get a come from behind win. Ever since they beat Penn State, I despise Penn State. I think Drew Aller is a fraud. I think that whole school is a fraud. Ever since they beat Penn State, I have faith that Notre Dame can go all the way. I know it's very different than beating Tennessee, Oregon, and Texas, but I really think that Notre Dame has the ability. If Riley Leonard's on, they can win.
Let's talk about the OSU defense for a minute. 16 sacks in 3 playoff games so far. They're going to be coming out firing.
Jack Sawyer's been playing out of his mind.
Right.
Out of his mind. He looks like one of the best, if not the best, edge rusher in college football right now. It's him and Abdul Carter, who looked like a menace out there in that Penn State Notre Dame game. But Jack Sawyer's up there right now. I mean, looking at his, I hate to say it, his strip sack against Texas.
Looks like J.J. Watt out there.
Hook him. But he does. He looks like an absolute beast out there, and he's gonna play a huge role in this Ohio State win. By the way,
I'm a minority here.
Yes, you are. And I was on College Gridiron this week, and I gave my take there, and I'm gonna stand by it here. Ohio State, Texas was the national championship. I think whichever team won that was winning the national championship pretty, not easily, but they weren't gonna. There was no chance they were gonna lose.
I don't hate that take.
I think Texas and Ohio State were the two best teams left in the semifinals. I have not been convinced by Notre Dame. Their Penn State win convinced me a little bit, but their win over Georgia, there was zero offense. They scored a kick return touchdown, and they scored off a turnover force in the red zone. Their offense could not move the ball.
Georgia wasn't even all that all year, the entire year.
No, they weren't.
Because Carson Beck's not a real quarterback.
Correct.
Carson Beck is a Starbucks barista. He's not a quarterback.
This is the worst Georgia team we've seen in a few years.
Yeah.
And they didn't even roll out Carson Beck.
No, Carson Beck was hurt.
It was Gunnar Stockton.
And then he just went and transferred to his girlfriend's school because he's bored.
He wasn't going to be starting at Georgia anymore, I'll tell you that much.
Oh, absolutely not.
But even like that, the win over Indiana, too, I didn't think Indiana was all that. I thought they were a little highly ranked for how good they are and how good they actually played this year. They didn't play a whole lot of good teams. But you like just comparing the paths these teams took, and Notre Dame went through Indiana, Georgia, and then the Penn State win was what kind of convinced me that they're not a bad team.
I don't think Notre Dame is fraudulent at all. Not that you're saying that.
No.
But I don't think either team we're not in a position where there's an obvious fraud. We know who's going to win, like we've been, frankly, before, obviously.
Yeah. It's been the same like 4 teams in the Natty every year.
Which is why it's nice to see it switched up this year.
Right. And I think, again, the 8.5 point spread, I do think is very disrespectful. I think it's that. I got Ohio State by 4. Right?
I think it's going to be the same thing, but I think they're going to lead the whole game. I don't think Notre Dame's going to lead at all.
But you think Ohio State's going to win by 4? Or?
Ish. Yeah,
Right.
I think Notre Dame's going to cover the 8.5. Like, that's just disrespectful to them.
Agreed.
But I think Ohio State's going to be ahead the whole game, and Notre Dame's not really going to ever sniff a chance at winning it.
Notre Dame is going to take the lead on the second to last possession of the game. Ohio State's going to come down the field and miss a kick. I'm telling you right now.
I don't hate the missed kick.
Clip it.
Their kicking game is suspect. Their kicking game is very suspect. So I don't hate that take of how that game gets lost. But I just think you mentioned the Ohio State defense. Let's look at the Ohio State offense. I mean, the weapons they have, and I'm not even a big fan of Will Howard. I don't think he's all that. But you look at their weapons, and if you want to stop the run, they got Judkins and Travion Henderson. It's like, all right, we'll commit to stopping the run. Well, then how are you going to guard Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate? So then it's like, okay, let's focus on the pass. Well, then they have 2 good backs that are just going to run it down your throat.
Generational underdog game this week.
It's so hard to stop this team.
It's going to be a generational win by Notre Dame.
I don't think so. Listen, my heart is with Notre Dame. I want Notre Dame to win. But my head says Ohio State. And it's not really a consideration for me that Notre Dame will win. I think I'm not a big fan of Riley Leonard. And you said you liked him. I
love Riley Leonard.
I don't think he's all that.
I love his story. Coming from Duke, he just seems like a very likable guy.
He seems like a very likable guy, yes. I agree.
and like he just like a player that you can look at and be like, I want him to win.
And
he's been producing, even though his percentages aren't great. 66% is not great. It's solid, but I feel like he's gonna be motivated. He's gonna have a little fire in his belly. He's gonna have a little tickle. He's like, let's go.
I want to root for him. I do, but it's not that it's hard, because it's easy to like this Notre Dame team, and their defense is very legit. Most turnovers in all of college football, and that's how they win games, is by causing those turnovers and then creating offense off of it. But I just don't think they're going to be able to create the offense off of it. I think Riley Leonard is a more mobile but not quite as good at passing version of Sam Hartman was last year. And
I like that comparison.
I loved Sam Hartman. I loved how he could sling the rock, but I don't think Riley Leonard's going to be able to sling the rock. I don't think Riley Leonard kind of lives up to what they need him to be.
I don't know.
There's a lot of pressure there.
I saw when it was like his mom texted him, "You suck," before every game. I feel like that this "you suck" before the Natty is gonna be the one to put him over the edge.
His own mom talking trash to him.
I love that though.
That's one way to do it.
It's more the motivation. Your mom tells you suck. You gotta put on.
Yeah, you do. That is actually crazy. I don't think I've ever had my parents talk trash to motivate me.
My dad used to all
But
the
hey,
time.
if it works.
My
if
dad,
it works.
my dad was my basketball coach for like 4 years, and he would be absolutely brutal to me. the car rides home after a bad game or something bad.
Classic.
Well, it's like the car rides there when you get halfway there and
You
you're
forget
like,
your cleats.
I forgot my
Yup.
cleats.
Yep.
You can't bring that up. You gotta play barefoot at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Dad, I forgot my cleats.
That's when you fake sick.
You'd rather take the hit by not having cleats than have to deal with your pops.
Correct.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Ohio State versus Notre Dame. That one is on Monday night. Should be a good one. They just played a couple of great semifinal games. And now, finally, the long-awaited championship coming up.
The best Monday of the year.
It's a great time of year to be a football fan. You got the NFL playoffs, the college football playoffs. If you're purely a football fan, this is the best time of year. I know we always say that. This is the best time of year. If you're a football fan, a very die-hard football fan, this is your best time of year as long as your teams are in it. As long as your teams are in it.
Not my Cowboys.
No. I think
nobody not that we ever make it here. We make it here, but lose every year, so it's fine.
Yeah, we'll make it to the divisional round every now and then. Caleb's no stranger to his team winning.
No, not at all. Feeling more like a stranger every year, though.
Don't worry, you got Drake May. You'll be fine.
He's so tough.
That kid is tough.
I prefer Jacoby Brissett.
Glorious king, yeah.
Glorious king.
Some might even say the greatest quarterback in Patriots history.
I happen to.
He's not competing with too many people, so.
No, I mean y'all don't have a lot of very good quarterbacks in your history. Ohio State Notre Dame Monday night. Tune into that one. It should be a good game. But that's gonna do it for us on this segment. We just talked college football. It's time to flip it around. We're staying in college, but we're going to college basketball, and we'll be back right after this break.
What's up, everyone? I'm Will Talent.
And I'm Evan Harkin. We're two of your hosts for NFL Friday, WFUV Sports' exclusive NFL podcast.
From breaking down the weekly slate to fantasy football pickups, we've got you covered on all things around the NFL.
Stay tuned for our hosts' weekly picks as they compete against each other all season long.
Football is here, and so is NFL Friday.
And welcome back in to One-on-One. We are here to talk about college basketball. We're hitting the court running. Before we hop into this, please, if you want to ask a question, if you want to make a comment, if you don't agree with what we're saying, please call in. That number is 718-817-2750. I repeat, 718-817-2750. We want to hear from you. Please call in and debate us. college basketball, man. It used to be the Big East. It used to be the ACC. It runs to the SEC now. We'll hop into that in just a minute.
I think it runs through the A10, Brennan.
That's the future.
Love
You've seen
that.
the future.
Love that.
It's going to be running through the A10 in 5 years. You're ahead of your time.
There you go.
Before we hop into that, we want to talk about Fordham men's basketball coach Keith Urgo, suspended 4 games by the university for recruiting violations. There's an ongoing investigation within the NCAA, and Fordham took it upon themselves to go ahead and suspend Urgo for 4 games. Not really sure how there are recruiting violations anymore with NIL and all the money being spent. My guess is a little too much money was spent than was budgeted for. But that is an issue, obviously.
There's been a lot of rumors going around campus, to be completely honest. I've heard a bunch of different things from a bunch of different people saying something about the wrong place to spend the money, something about this was like a olive branch of the NCAA to not suspend them for a longer time, some stuff about this being going on for like years. It's just a lot of what's the word, jargon? No,
Noise.
A lot of noise.
Thank you, journalism.
And nothing concrete released by the school. But I feel like after these, because they suspended for 4 games, starting I think next game is Wednesday.
Starting January 22nd.
Yeah, next game is Wednesday. And I feel like after those 4 games, NCAA is going to come down with either a hammer and suspend them for a longer time, or take the olive branch from Fordham as where Fordham's going to suspend him. That's his punishment. I feel like it's iffy, and I feel like it's a difficult topic that the school won't release much details on.
Yeah, we just don't know any of the concrete details. It'll be interesting to I guess maybe on the bright side look at how Trey Whittle's going to do at the helm for the first 4 games. Right, he's been with the Rams for 4 years. He's going to serve as interim coach. Played at Pittsburgh. Somewhat of a new era for the Fordham Rams, at least for 4 games. It'll be interesting to see that Whittle just thrown into the fire, to say the absolute least. A surprise 4-game stint as head coach of the Fordham Rams during conference play, when there is a chip and a half on the shoulder of the Fordham Rams, as they've frankly disappointed in conference play, disappointed in the season so far. You know, you bring a Zona in, you bring a Jackie Johnson in, and you think that the team is going to produce. Those guys have produced, specifically Johnson. Zona started heating up at the turn of the year, but things have to go in order for the Fordham Rams to figure it out, and we'll see. I'm not necessarily optimistic or pessimistic about the Whittle implementation.
Do you think that this could possibly be like that the ADs could be using this as like a possible trial run?
No.
You don't think
Urgo stays on?
No.
You think so?
Based on the way, I mean, given this comes at an 0-5 start in conference play, but based on the way that Urgo has been the past few years, and you look back at, let's see, it was my freshman year.
What was that, 22?
22, yeah, my freshman year when Rose Thrill became a thing.
Emotional.
And how invested Urgo was, not just in the team, but in the students, in the student section,
and the
getting
relationship
people to come out, and the relationship between Urgo and the students.
Yeah, he gave us all free tickets earlier in the year, this year, just in general.
Keith Urgo loves Fordham University. And I want you guys to think about how profound that statement is. A lot of coaches, they love the athletic department. A lot of coaches, they love their team. They love their fans. Keith Urgo loves the university. He has a family connection. He's super close with the president of the university, Tanya Tetlow. And that's made abundantly clear on so many levels. So I don't actually hate, George, the idea of kind of putting Whittle in this position to be like, oh, interesting. What does his stock look like for
the possible future? Not talking immediate.
Exactly. Or I think with Urgo completely out of the picture.
Yeah.
It's like because Urgo, as much as he loves the program, he negotiated a very high salary 2 years ago that Fordham may not be willing to pay going forward.
Yeah.
So I think it has a lot more to do with putting Woodall in the hot seat and less about figuring it out without Ergo, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it came at a time too where Fordham made a deep run in the A10 conference playoffs, where we lost to VCU in the semis, and then VCU ended up going on to March Madness, and we were that close to playing in March. We were that close.
One day.
Which would have been insane.
One day we'll make it to March.
The scenes, if we were playing in March, would have been electric.
All campus would have been bouncing.
But since then, the Fordham Rams men's basketball team has kind of been a little disappointing. I mean, you look at this year, 8-10 overall, 0-5 in conference play. And then last year, too, we weren't too hot. We finished towards the bottom of the A10. I would agree. I think, honestly, it gives them 4 games to kind of see what they got for the future. I don't think they'll be willing to pay a whole lot of money, again, based off recent success. But it will be interesting to see how the interaction and the relationship between coaching staff and student section goes after seeing how invested Ergo was, not just that 1 year, not just 2022, but since then too. Even like the last game, the Triple OT Thriller, Ergo was still trying to get everyone on their feet, get everyone pumped up. He's a man of the crowd. He's a man of the people. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out in his 4-game absence.
I agree. I feel like it's gonna be an interesting. It'd be an interesting dynamic in the locker room for sure, because this came out of nowhere randomly. No one really knew what was going on, and I feel like that this dynamic is gonna be very awkward in the locker room.
It will, and Ergo suspended for 4 games starting on the 22nd. But we got some other news here. The college basketball landscape now runs to the SEC. Caleb, I'm sorry, your ACC times are over. The Big East times are over.
Big East isn't over. Big East isn't over.
Big East is over.
Big East isn't over.
Big East is over. It's at the SEC's turn now. They have 9 of the top 25 teams. No other conference has more than 5. It's the SEC's turn, and every single team in the SEC looks good this year.
It's nasty.
They could realistically have 8 to 10 teams playing in March.
Oh, for sure. I think the SEC is not just a football conference anymore. They're starting to shift into basketball. I don't like it. I've always been a big fan of the ACC, as long as for basketball, and it's interesting for basketball. I'm a Gonzaga fan, so I have to struggle with making it to the Final Four every year and losing, but it's just domination. You have Auburn, you have Alabama, you have Florida, Tennessee. It's just, what is going on? It's a complete change of landscape. And I feel like that could come from the SEC teams having some of the largest budgets for sports recruiting, period. They have insane budgets, and now with the NIL deals, they're able to go give them $1 billion to come and play for you. So I feel like it's kind of like a money race when you look at stuff like what BYU just did with AJ DeBansa a couple months ago. It was $7 million to play there.
Sounds right.
Insane. What is AJ DeBansa worth? Every penny, for sure. But to give a 17-year-old kid $7 million is nuts.
College football, on a regular season perspective, is outwatched by college basketball, right? We know that there's more money there. And it's a great point that you made, George. SEC is the flavor of the month right now when it comes to college sports. And while traditionally college basketball, especially men's basketball, has run through the ACC and the Big East, all of the money, because of college football, is in the SEC. And that's a really interesting point that you made, because now the SEC is kind of filtering into, I don't want to say completely unforeseen territory, but dominating certain leagues and certain sports to degrees which they haven't dominated before. And that was a really good link that you made that I completely agree with. And it'll be interesting to see how more of a monopoly the SEC is going to take in college basketball. Is this the most dominant SEC-wise we're going to see the top 25, or is this the beginning of a trend in either direction?
As much as I love the SEC, and I'm a big fan of the conference because not just because my team plays in it, but because of the competition and the amount of teams that can actually compete in that conference. I think this is going to be the most teams we see there. I think you look at the college football landscape right now, and it used to be all SEC, maybe sprinkle in a couple of Big Ten, a couple of Big 12, but a majority of the best teams in college football were SEC. And recently has started to shift away from that, where in this playoffs, you see all the people complaining that SEC teams didn't get in over SMU, over ACC teams, over Group of 5 teams. And all these people are still so for the SEC is better than every other conference. Well, we've seen the SEC get wiped in a handful of games in bowl games and in playoff games. We saw Tennessee get absolutely destroyed by a Big Ten school in Ohio State. And we're seeing that kind of thing where it's like maybe football isn't all SEC anymore. I mean, there's not an SEC team in the national championship. It's a Big Ten team and an independent team. And so you look at the way that landscape has changed, and it's gone away from being just the one conference on top, and it's more kind of even competition because of NIL. I think that's what you're going to get with college basketball as well. Is right now it's the SEC, but I think it will shift, and I think that these conferences that were powerful, like the ACC, I think the Big 12 even, can make a push and kind of even out that competition.
I'm just baffled when you look at the top 10. Top 10 is Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee. I think that's it for the SEC.
Kentucky.
Oh, and Kentucky.
5 of the top 10.
I know it's Kentucky there. 5 out of 10 is crazy. And you look at a team like Alabama, they weren't a basketball school until like the past 4 or 5 years. You look at a school like Florida, which is 7th in their conference, but they're 5th in the nation. That's crazy. You look at the power of these teams. You're 7th in your conference and you're 5th in the nation. The gravity of that is insane. You look at how strong this conference is, and you look at the rest of the nation. This conference is on the come up. I think it's gonna be like this for a couple years, and then something's gonna shift. Because then you're gonna see new players come into the football realm and the basketball realm. There are gonna be new big hitters, and I feel like it's their turn.
Well, and the whole concept of blue bloods anyway, that's not an SEC centric
not at all
situation either at all.
No, you have UNC, you have Duke, Kansas,
Kentucky's
Kentucky.
your only one,
and those are blue bloods and
UCLA,
and but they
not anymore.
They don't exist anymore. You look at that, and they're the teams they're like the 4 teams that are spread across the conferences, except Duke and UNC. They're together. It's those 4 core teams, and you only see 2 of them really running the show now.
Man, North Carolina's a basketball state.
Well, I was going to say Carolina basketball is not in the best state, no pun intended, at all right now.
Not right now.
No.
Historically.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Hubert Davis's future is with the Tar Heels. Right now, not looking great, right? Kind of on that bubble of the top 25.
I feel like it lost a little bit of its prestige when Roy Williams left.
100%. 100%. But I think Carolina lost more aura with Roy Williams leaving than Duke when Coach K left, because Shire still has some aura.
I don't know.
I think so. They were able to land Cooper Flag. They still
Shire
have
has
that.
more aura than
That's
Hubert
true.
Davis.
Yeah.
I think Coach K has more aura than Roy Williams, though.
Oh, for sure.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
100%.
That's objective. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then
That's
when you
yes.
look at that, you have to look at stuff that happened with schools like Georgetown, where they
Right.
just disappear off the face of the planet after John Thompson.
Right.
They barely exist anymore.
Dean Smith more aura than both of them, by the way.
Oh,
Coach
for
K
sure.
and Roy
Oh,
Williams.
100%.
All right, just want to make sure we're on the same page.
100%.
Okay,
If you coach MJ, you have the most amount of aura of all time.
good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, now it's about to be time to turn pro and look towards pro basketball. George is going to be taking us through the Knicks and the Nets and how they're doing this season. He's going to be leading that segment. But that's going to be all for college hoops. We will see you on the other side of this break.
I'm Isabella Terracini.
And I'm Barrett Spreitzer. We're two of your hosts for College Gridiron, the exclusive home for all things college football on WFUV Sports.
Join us as we break down the biggest matchups of the week, Heisman hopefuls, and college football playoff previews.
Listen in on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Welcome back to One on One here in the Rose Hill Studios. George Sfouggatakis, joined by Brendan Shorey and Caleb Stine. And it's time to talk about New York's bread and butter, the New York Knicks. So looking at last night's loss, what do you think they need to work on before their matchup against the Hawks on Monday?
I'm just kind of worried about Cat, about his injury. I was at the game and I saw it, and it did not look pretty. I mean, he's going up for a dunk attempt, gets fouled by, I believe it was Isaiah Stewart, jams his whole kind of
hand,
front main three fingers. Said main three, pointer, middle,
and thumb,
ring,
and
thumb.
Because he has that bone chip on his thumb.
Yeah, right into the bottom of that backboard. And so honestly, I'm just worried about that. I think this Knicks team is playing great. They're playing good basketball right now. They've been a little iffy as of recently. They're on or off recently, very on and off. But I'm looking for Cat to get healthy, and they need more bench production. They do, and it's hard when Tibbs plays his starters for 45 of the 48 minutes.
But you have to look at who's on the bench. I am self-proclaimed Jericho Sims' number one hater. I despise that man. I think he should be traded. He should go play for the Guangdong Sharks in China. It's time to go. When you look at the bench, we really have three guys we play.
Deuce.
It's Deuce, Precious, Campaign, and then if needed,
Shumpert sometimes.
If needed, need to land you Shamit.
Shamit, yeah.
And Iman Shumpert. Shout out Iman Shumpert.
Names. Shout
out Iman Shumpert. New York Knicks legend, NBA champion. But when you have four guys coming off the bench, you need more. But I think mid-February. Word is Mitch is coming back in mid-February. That's going to change it up a little bit. It's going to give Cat some rest. Maybe put Mitch at the 5, start Cat at the 4. Give Josh Hart a rest. Maybe, just maybe. But when you look at the games, I feel like you have to notice that Mikal Bridges needs to ask for the ball. He plays a very passive game. He waits for the ball to come to him. When Brunson gets doubled, you need to have that man go out, ask for the ball, because when he is playing well, he's unstoppable. He's such an elite player when he's at his peak that he needs to start taking charge, asking for the ball. And when you have production from Josh Hart putting up triple doubles like it's nothing, you have to have someone back that up because Josh Hart can't do everything across the whole floor, and Jalen Brunson can't just strictly run the offense. You need to have more production from an outside source like Mikal Bridges. So off to Caleb. What do you think the Knicks need to work on?
I think there's a lot. I mean, I definitely think bench production is lacking more than it should. There's a lot to work on there, but I think there's more pressure on Cat that the Knicks sort of got used to when he had a great first half of the season. So I think a lot of it does have to do with Towns getting back and figuring that out. But I think the Knicks are in a fine spot, right? They're in a very much a good, not great spot. We're at a turning point in the season, and they can do with that what they will do with that, and it's gonna be hard to see. I'd like the Knicks to get back into last year's form where they're a lot more dominant, and we'll see what happens.
We will also some lacking offensive production from OG Anunoby. He has been playing at the same caliber we have seen throughout the past 18 months, 10 months. We've had him because we're actually just hit a year.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, it's been about a year.
It just hit a year on December 30th. I remember getting a text from my uncle about that trade, and I was not
a business.
I was not a happy camper.
No,
I was not. I didn't like giving up RJ and quickly, but then when you look at how good OG is, he's a difference maker.
Year.
He's a difference maker. He is a difference maker, and you look at the trade block again for this year. Word around the block is Jonas Valanciunas is a top target for the Knicks. What do you guys think about that?
I don't like it. I don't, and I think really it's because who do you give away? Like, you have so limited bench production already, and if you're gonna sell out your already limited
I think
depth,
you ship Sims and whatever pick we have left.
Is
that enough to do it though?
I don't know.
I don't know because the Wizards are in shambles.
Yeah,
but how high are they going to be on Jericho Sims though?
He has. I can't lie. He doesn't have potential.
I was going to say, I know you cannot sell me that pen, bro. I know that.
I can't lie. That man has no potential, no future, and is a waste of space on the Knicks bench. Now, we have to look at Jalen Brunson. How can the Knicks back off the load? Because they put so much pressure on him, and I feel like some of that has to do with a lack of size. He doesn't have a set big man other than Cat,
right? Who
can spread the floor. Precious is great, but he's only 6'8", and I'm not speaking again on Jericho Sims. So, how can the Knicks lessen the load on Jalen Brunson?
Have him give the ball up more. I mean, you mentioned it about Mikal going and getting the ball, but I think you have 4 or 5 guys. Like, you can have Josh Hart take the ball up. You can have Cat take the ball up. You can have Mikal.
I don't want Cat taking the ball up. If he's the biggest guy in the court, I don't want him taking the ball because his power forward is Josh Hart, standing at 6 foot nothing.
But I'm not saying often. I'm saying if you have these other options to do it, to take a little bit of that load off of Brunson and give him an opportunity to be more efficient with his looks, I think that's a huge part, and that's going to kind of spread the defenses out. It's going to give the defenses a harder time, honestly, with having to worry about these bigger guys taking the ball down the court. And as a Mavs fan, I've seen it this year. The Mavs have P.J. Washington take the ball up, Najee Marshall take the ball up, and they have Luka and Kyrie work off ball. And it kind of creates a different kind of matchup where you have a big come set a screen for another big, and then
they have no bigs.
Well,
I feel like that can change once Mitch comes back.
But even then, like, if you have Josh Hart take the ball up, if you have Mikal take the ball up and give Jalen Brunson a rest on the offensive side a little bit, it should make him more efficient. It should take a little bit of the load off of him.
Switching the floor real quick, the defense. Perimeter defense has been lacking. And that is in part from a lack of defensive production from Mikal Bridges. He hasn't been the same caliber of defensive. He hasn't been the same defensive caliber player that we've seen in past years when he was second in the Defensive Player of the Year. Caleb, do you think the Knicks should trade for another piece to help on the perimeter defense, or do you think they should trade for a big?
I think it's got to be a big. I think when you're over relying on Cat to help Brunson, there's your answer right there. That's the issue. We couldn't really have a straightforward answer about how is Brunson going to be helped. I mean, you look about how we could open it up more to Josh Hart and be more efficient. There's only so much room to improve efficiency, right? This is a talented team. That's not the issue. The issue is personnel. The issue is puzzle pieces. You get a big, the Knicks will be all right.
I agree 100%. I mean, you have the defensive potential there. You have it there with Macau.
And OG.
Yeah, you have it there with OG. Like, you have guys who have shown they can play good defense. They're just not producing right now. They're not playing good defense right now, and I think they have the potential to. They just need a little slap on the wrist, and that's trading for another defensive piece isn't necessarily going to be the move to help that.
I agree, and on the topic of not producing, we're going to talk about the Brooklyn Nets.
Shout out Kurt Sippel.
This man's hate for the Nets is
shout
unmatched.
out Kurt Sippel. Shout out Chris
Carino.
The Nets are just the definition of a dumpster fire. 59 points. Point loss to the Clippers. I don't even know how that's just possible.
First off, I don't think I've ever heard you say Nets and a positive word in the same sentence.
Well, I don't know how you could.
Oh, no.
It's hilarious.
Even doing an updates run, I gave him some hate. Carino called me out for it that day. It's just brutal. I don't. The Nets are New York's little brother, and the Knicks' little brother. No one likes them in the city. They're just literally the little nook in downtown Brooklyn that no one likes.
They are, and it's frustrating to watch as a basketball fan, like how destructive the front office has been, and just how horrible they've been. Because where are they right now? Like, they are.
Are they rebuilding? Are they trying to win?
They're only
no one
a couple
knows.
years off of the Kyrie, Harden, KD attempt, and that didn't work. And they traded them all, and then for the past couple years they've been floating around that, just out of the play-in, not good enough to get a good pick, but not good enough to make the playoffs.
They do have picks this year, though.
They do have picks this year, and
they have a lot of picks.
They have a lot of needs.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Brooklyn. Thank the Knicks. But I don't know if they're I don't know how far off of a rebuild they are, how close they are to rebuild, because they show signs of good basketball. They show signs of really bad basketball. They're such a confusing organization.
I want to see Cooper Flag.
I don't at all.
I don't.
No.
Come
Why?
on.
Why?
I feel
just like for the piss of it, or to actually. Okay, I get that. But as a serious basketball fan, no.
I just think it'd be funny to see
as a
Cooper
humorist
Flag in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And if they overtake the Knicks at that point,
that'd be sick.
The little brother would become the big brother behind Cooper Flag. I think that would be hilarious.
I think it's safe to say either Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper, you are a Brooklyn Net.
And those aren't bad picks.
No, not at all. Not at all. They're both studs. They're both fantastic basketball players. They're both going to be great in the NBA. And the Nets just they need to make their mind up. They don't know what they want to be, because they sometimes show competitive. It's not even ethical tanking, because some games it's unethical tanking and losing by 60. In other games you're playing competitive basketball. It's just so confusing as to what they're trying to accomplish.
I also think it's hilarious. I saw the video the other day of Ben Simmons and Bogdanovich sitting on the bench while they put some rookies who were actually playing in the game behind the bench. They were sitting second row and playing.
That was crazy. The Nets just aren't. They're so confusing. They stress me out. And I think that's going to do it for the New York basketball segment. We'll be right back with more one-on-one right after this short break.
Hey guys, Grace McCarran here with Jack Warner.
And we're two of your hosts for Nosebleeds, WFUV's one and only baseball podcast.
We'll keep you in the loop on all tri-state news with the Yankees and Mets,
as well as the biggest headlines from around the MLB.
Catch weekly episodes of Nosebleeds on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Take a trip around the bases with Nosebleeds on WFUV Sports.
Welcome back into One-on-One. We just talked some New York basketball with George. Now it's time to turn around and look at the rest of the league. Before we do that, please call in. We would love to hear what you have to say. The number is 718-817-2750. Again, 718-817-2750. Come debate us. Come let us know what you think. Let's have a good time. Let's talk some basketball. The general NBA, looking at the general scope right now, sitting just past that halfway point of the season, and the Thunder look legit right now.
They're so good. They're so good.
You have a lineup where they can run out 5 with Hartenstein, 5 with Chet, and a small ball lineup, and those 3 lineups are better than a lot of teams.
The perfect 5 for them is Shea, J-Dub, Chet, and Hartenstein. You run Chet at a 4 and keep Hartenstein at the 5 because Chet has more of a stroke, more mid-range game, able to shoot the 3. And then I think Jay Will is the other piece, or Dort as like the 2-3-ish. But that team is so good. That Thunder team, I think, if it's not the Knicks, it's going to be them winning it all.
SGA averaging 31 points a game. Just absolute dominance on the offensive board. And the fact that they pretty handily beat the Celtics, I think.
And they beat up on the Cavs.
Says so much about what the Thunder's doing. I remember, shout out Chris Persian, and he called, I think it might have been in 23. He called that the Thunder was going to be the next big team in the NBA. All called him a madman. Aged very, very well. Shout out KP on that one. The Thunder look great. The Thunder look dominant. The Thunder, no real signs of slowing down. I think a very early final pick right now. And again, like Celtics and Cavs look good as well, but Thunder are solid as well.
And they're kind of taking a bit of a lead.
I've lost some faith in the Celtics, not going to lie.
So have I.
Oh, yeah.
Mine's a bit more emotional, but yeah.
The Thunder are kind of taking a little bit of a lead in the Western Conference. They're up 6.5 games on the 2-seed Rockets, which I'm not going to lie. I don't think anyone saw the Rockets there. But Thunder,
they have a bright future, the Rockets. The Rockets are going to be good.
Bright future, but I don't know if the present was kind of, like this year was kind of.
They weren't planning on being this good this year.
No.
But then you have to look at Sengun, who's an absolute beast, top 5 center in the league.
Yeah.
In my eyes. Then you look at, of course, Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, who has crazy bounce, crazy athlete. And then that team is the team's young. It's going to be really good for the next couple of years. And I'm not surprised to see them in this spot. I'm not like baffled, but I'm not surprised.
I'm a little shocked because when you look down the Western Conference standings, you have teams like the Suns sitting at 20-20.
Suns are frauds.
Yeah, but I would have thought they would be a little better than the Rockets this year, based off purely star power. But then you got like the Warriors even sitting at 20-20.
The Nuggets have been surprising.
They've been sneaky.
But they're usually not the 4 seed. You're not expecting them to be the 4 seed. And you're not expecting the Timberwolves to be the 8 seed.
Mm-mm.
Lakers too. The whole Western Conference is a little bit upside down when you look at the standings. You expect the Thunder to be there, but then the Rockets, Grizzlies, Clippers, Lakers, the Mavs at the 7 seed, the Kings playing team.
We're hurt. That's why.
It's not what you expect. That all the teams that you expect to be in the playoffs are in the playoff picture, but not in the order that you would expect.
Yeah. No, 100%. And it is an odd year for sure because you have players like Ja, who ended up missing a lot of time last year, is now taking the Grizzlies to that 3
Ja Wick
seed.
is back.
Yeah, he is. That guy is back. The Rockets, who were nowhere near as good last year, their young players are improving. Clippers, who everyone kind of ruled out after trading away Paul George, after seeing that Kawhi was going to be out an extended period of time.
Kawhi's been looking relatively good when he's back.
And Harden's reemerging this year.
Harden, in his ripe old age of 47, is looking good.
that big boy.
But then you look at a conference like the East, where it's just so weak.
I wouldn't say weak. I'd say top heavy.
Top heavy is more accurate, I think. You look at that top 3.
They're the ones.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I think the top 3 is going.
But then once you go down, it just gets bad and worse.
Yeah, but from
the
a
Bucks aren't a good
perspective.
team. The Bucks aren't a good team.
I'm not high on the Bucks. I said top 3.
And then the Pacers. Don't get me started on the Pacers. I can't stand the Pacers. I know Brian, our video producer, is a big fan of Tyrese Halliburton. I can't stand the Pacers. Pacers are a bunch of clowns. Anyways, you look, and then the Heat aren't that good of a team. The Bulls are playing caliber. They're 6 games under 500. And then Philadelphia. That's I could go for 3 hours alone about how much I dislike Philadelphia.
In the barrel.
Yeah, everyone hates Philly sports, especially the Sixers. Yeah, everyone that's not from Philly hates Philly sports.
Correct. Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, looking at the Western Conference compared to the Eastern Conference, in the Western Conference you have a decent amount of good teams. It's a very deep conference.
Yeah,
a very deep conference. But there's really only that one team that you're like, oh, this is their year, and it's the Thunder, which is unfortunate.
They're gonna do
it.
Angel's so happy back there right now.
Hey, the Mavs beat them last night, by the way. Just a reminder. The injured Mavs.
He didn't like that one.
No, he did not.
Is he getting on the mic?
He sounds like yeah.
He might be. He might be. He's not gonna like that. But the Eastern Conference, you have a couple teams that you could say this is their year.
And I'm sorry, the Thunder are so good. And then you look 1 through 5, they're so talented. I love J-Dub. J-Dub is so tough. He's such a good player, and I love how Shea plays like an old head.
I hate Shea.
Shea plays like an old head.
I hate him.
He plays like how my dad tried to teach me to play. So play in the mid range, don't shoot too many threes, and have good finishing ability.
Yeah, he's good, but it's like even like watching him.
He's modern day Jerry West
last year, and throughout this year, I'm not saying Luka's not this, but Shea is a massive foul baiter, and I hate that, and I hate that for the game.
No one's worse than Jalen Brunson.
And I don't.
I'm so sorry. No one's worse than Jalen Brunson.
I
love Jalen Brunson.
Let's really talk about it from back here.
Welcome to the show, Angel.
I hear some crazy comments about OKC right now and Shea Gilgeous.
That's all Brendan.
I'll claim that proudly.
Listen, I get it. You're a Dallas fan. You did beat us in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, we did.
It hurt in the side, but I'm not worried about last night's game. All right, you're letting that win that's a little too
Low-key
much.
letting it get to your
It'll
head.
get
I'm
into
not
my
going to
head a little
lie.
bit. But
I'm making it get to his head. That's the goal.
At the end of the day, we are the best team in the West. I would argue best team in the league right now after what they did to Cleveland the second time around.
The Cavs did it to y'all at their home.
They did, but we didn't embarrass them.
Yeah, no,
They didn't embarrass
was
us.
bad.
We
That was
embarrassed them.
bad.
You know?
That first game went to
And fourth quarter, Cavs took over.
Yeah.
But looking at OKC, they really have grown from last year. Like, no one expected them to be the number 1 seed last year. And you're talking about a team that is really good right now without Chet as,
and without Hartenstein too.
Without Hartenstein for a little bit, but then once he kind of got in the lineup, they went in a massive run. He's been in and out now of the lineup of injuries. They're not fully healthy, but you see how dominant this team has been, and it's because of players like Shea, who I right now think is the MVP of the league when it comes to a number standpoint, and
agree,
it comes
actually.
to a value standpoint.
I hate to say it,
to
but I
the team.
agree.
Jokic.
You talk about
That wasn't me.
I
That
know.
wasn't me.
Listen, I only like Denver because of Westbrook being on a team and he's been doing great. But I'm sorry, Jokic stole the MVP last year. I'm not gonna have that again.
I don't know
That's
about
a
I don't know
whole-
about stealing the
that's a
MVP
whole-
last year.
That's a whole another
I
conversation.
don't know about that
That's
one.
a whole another conversation. But when you talk about value to a team, yes, Jokic valuable to the team. They're not going anywhere without him. But you can say the same about OKC. Last night against the Mavericks, since we love to talk about that game, they're without Shea, and you kind of see how the dynamic was throughout the game. Shea is that consistent number 1 option that you can always rely on, but then without him, then you have to kind of go to every other piece on the team. And mind you,
Luka's out.
Luka's out, yeah, sure. You still had Kyrie, and he's had
We're a well-built team.
Still had Thompson. But we're talking about OKC here
Clay's
right now.
washed. Clay is so washed.
Clay may be washed, but he's still a valuable
0 for 10 in a
He's a solid
playoff game. 0
contributor
for
still.
10 in a playoff game.
He's still a contributor, just exactly. But you can see how yesterday, without a number 1 option in Shea, the team had to kind of piece it together and figure out who was going to be, that offensive guy. When you have Shea, he's the true consistent offensive guy and playmaker, and they just kind of feed off him and the energy. And just wait until this team is fully healthy, hopefully after the All-Star break. And you think this is dominance now? I'm just saying there's a lot more to come with this team.
I would love to see a rematch Mavs Thunder in the playoffs.
That would be electric.
Give me that.
Give me
that
Thunder in 4
rematch.
though.
Healthy Mavs.
I wouldn't say 4. I'll say Thunder in 6.
I was going to say 6.
I'm taking Mavs in 7. Come on.
I mean, you have to, I guess.
Yeah, it's your team.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that my team will lose. Come on now.
Of course not.
But give me that rematch for sure.
Of course. That would be very entertaining. The NBA looks good right now. The Thunder, the Cavs, the Celtics, all on top of the world right now. But that's going to do it for our NBA talk. Next segment, we have an interview with Adrian Wojnarowski. So stay tuned for that. When we come back from that, we're going to hop on the ice. We're going to talk some hockey. So stay tuned and wait for the interview after this break.
You're listening to WFUV, New York.
Adrian Wojnarowski, appreciate you taking the time. I tell you what, they really rewarded you with one heck of a first season, their best start in 55 years. It's got to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's been tremendous. No, good to be with you guys. Good to be at Rose Hill today. This is a great college basketball environment. A lot of Bonnie fans here, along with the Ram faithful.
Oh, we can hear them.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so listen, people are excited about our team and our community, and so good first half for us. But this is as you guys know, this is a good Fordham team, and we overcame some foul trouble in the first half and got some really good contributions from our bench.
Yeah, speaking of your role as GM, just kind of an ever-shifting landscape in college basketball, obviously with NIL and everything. What do you think that means for the future of mid-major basketball?
It's a challenge, and I think Fordham, I think certainly the people at Fordham are faced with it. It's St. Bonaventure and certainly, sort of the smaller private schools in our conference. We're trying to compete at a high level in our league with the Daytons, with the VCUs, St. Louis's, whose resources and size are significant. And there's a gulf that's increasing, that's probably going to increase with revenue sharing. And so I think for schools like St. Bonaventure, I think like Fordham, a St. Joe's, a Duquesne, being creative, being really efficient with the resources you do have, and for us having, an incredible coach in Mark Schmidt, that closes a lot of gaps for us, and that tightens, the gap with schools who do have more resources. We've been doing that for a long time under Coach Schmidt at Bonaventure, but the challenge only increases. So obviously, NIL is a huge part of that, and so. And my role as GM is spending a lot of time trying to be creative and maximize the resources that we have and the folks who can help us and that we can work with to try to help us with NIL.
I'm curious just to get your thoughts on the general landscape of college basketball. Obviously, the NIL era, and you hear rumors about, well, they might let JUCO years not count at the D1 level. It seems like
it's not a rumor; it's a court case.
Yeah, that's right. College basketball seems like it's just changing every year. I want to get your take on that.
Adapt or perish, and that's where we all are right now. And I think for us at Bonaventure, listen, the most important recruiting you're going to do is with your own team, and retention and keeping your players. Once you have them and they experience success and buy into your program, keeping those players. And so you're always working on that because it's perpetual free agency. Everybody can be a free agent every year. And so it's changing I don't want to say every year. It feels like it's, every month, every week, there's an evolution to this. And so for us at Bonaventure to have a place where people really care about our program, understand that the success of our basketball program is, it directly correlates to success and the thriving of our entire university. And so for places like Bonaventure, like Fordham, when your athletic program is going well, your university is doing well. And so it has bigger ramifications for us.
Thank you.
I'd love to get, you talked about how much you loved Bonaventure. It was part of the reason you came back and took this role. And we hear so many great things from alums that talk about Bonaventure. You see the fans come out even here in the Bronx, miles away from only in New York. What has Bonaventure meant to you? What do you think it means to this alumni fan base? Can you speak a little bit about how just impassioned it seems the Bonnies fans are?
Yeah, there's no place quite like St. Bonaventure, a school with 1,900 students that competes in a league like the Atlantic 10. There are other schools our size, but they're not in a league like this.
Yeah.
St. Bonaventure was a transformational place in my life, and I think for a lot of people. And so it keeps we all keep an incredible connection to it. I think the success of the program is a big part of that. But even in pre-Coach Schmidt, in lean years, people still, it didn't change how much people love the place and want to get it right. And so for us, the opportunity we have to continue playing at a high level like this is because we have this impassioned fan base that will not just go into Rose Hill, but will go into other places. We played in Florida earlier this year, and we have alums everywhere, and it's a lot of metropolitan New York alums here, and folks will travel. But it's a special place, and I'm honored to be back and to be able to play a role in just trying to help coach with the program and try to get us through this really challenging time. I'm having a lot of fun.
Do you think, obviously you spent the better part of your career being an NBA insider, do you see with all the movement that we see in college basketball now, that being kind of a role that we can see in college basketball rather than just in the professionals?
Yeah, I think the GM role, I think for every school every school's got different needs out of a GM, and I think every GM, a lot of us have come from very different backgrounds. Baker Dunleavy at Villanova was a coach, and Alex Klein at Syracuse was in scouting. I come from a different background, and so I think you kind of play to your strengths, mind relationships, and try to open doors for our guys and be able to go out and try to raise money and give our guys pro opportunities while they're in college, getting them in gyms with NBA guys, and then when their careers are over here, to get them access to people who can help their careers, whether it's playing here in the United States, hopefully in the NBA, or playing overseas.
One last quick one, because obviously very famous for your time as an NBA insider. A couple big FUV guys in the NBA world, Mike Bree and Ryan Ruocco. Just curious if you ever had any interactions or minglings with them.
It was an honor to work with both of them. Obviously, both I worked with at ESPN. I saw Michael Kay. The patron saint of Rose Hill. Here, John Giannone and just Jack Curry. Legends. I mean, those guys were legends in my profession, my old profession, and obviously Fordham. Great Fordham men. So it's great to see those guys here. And Fordham is a who's who, and we think we have a pretty good journalism school. Mike Vaccaro, Dan Barry for the New York Times, Pulitzer Prize winners here. So some pretty esteemed journos from Fordham and Bonnie's in the house today.
Adrian Wojnarowski, the first ever GM in St. Bonaventure men's basketball history. Woj, thanks so much for the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, sports fans, it's Bobby C. I'm the sports director here at WFUV. From live broadcasts of Fordham athletics to coverage of all the professional sports teams in the NYC, we've got everything a sports fan could ask for. Like talking sports? Check out One on One, New York's longest-running sports call-in show, as well as our diverse collection of podcasts. If you're a Fordham student interested in joining our program, feel free to shoot me an email, bobbyc@wfuv.org. And as always, thank you to all of our listeners who support us every week. 90.7 FM is the home of WFUV Sports.
And welcome back into One on One. You guys just heard from Woj, interviewed by our very own Chaz McAdams and Lou Orlando at halftime during the Fordham St. Bonaventure basketball game about a week and a half ago. Now it's time to switch sports and go to the rink, and it's time to talk some hockey. And we're going to start with the Rangers, and they are not off to a very hot start this season. They are just not playing good hockey. They haven't been all year, and they might be starting to turn a corner recently, but they just have not been the team that they were hyped up to be, the team they were supposed to be, and this is a completely different team than we're seeing from last year. They look absolutely horrible, and it's because I'm not a hockey guy, I'll admit that. So I phoned in a friend earlier. One of our good friends, Nick, big Rangers fan. So I texted him. I said, Nick, why do the Rangers suck this year? I was blunt. I put it straight out there, and they're veteran players who they're paying all this money to just are not performing like they're supposed to. And that's a problem when it comes down to any league, any team, you need your stars to be able to go out and perform day in, day out. And the Rangers just are not getting that this season.
No, it's disappointing. I know there was a lot of hype, and this is not how the Rangers were supposed to be at all. You look at the talent, you look at guys like Panarin, you look at Fox. This is something that is a disappointment, and unfortunately, I think it is too late. Like, I feel like this has kind of become the Rangers' identity in the past 2 weeks where, it wasn't, it wasn't the best start for the Rangers in the first 3 weeks of the season. That can change, right? You can figure out your mindset. You can shake it off, dust it off, and move on. But it's just been so consistently mid. I mean, they're sitting at 21-20, right? Like that is as mid as you can get, and that's almost worse than being.
They're just so decent.
They're so fine. They're so okay. And when you look,
that's not tolerable for New York, though.
Well, I'm saying when you look exactly when you look at the names that they have, those aren't okay players. Those are great players who are playing okay.
Yeah, like you look at Artemi Panarin, he has 47 points and a plus-minus of -6. That's not something you want to see from the team's best player, with quotes, because it's all differentiated due to position and talents. But you don't want to see your highest point scorer have a negative plus-minus. And that's not what you want to see from a team that has high hopes going into every year. Everyone looks at the Rangers and they think they're going to be good. You want them to be good. When you're sitting seventh in your division, that's not what you want to see.
And it's those guys who aren't having the good years. I mean, Shesterkin's still playing amazing.
For sure.
He's still Igor Shesterkin. Like he's got a save percentage 90.7%. He's giving up less than 3 goals a game. Like he's still having a Shesterkin type of year, but they're not getting the same product in front of him that they need in order to go down, score goals, win games. They're not getting any of the product they had the last couple of years outside of Shesterkin. And that's
for
problem.
Sure.
That's a big problem. Because, goalies are vital in hockey, but you got to be able to put it all together. They can't do everything. And the Rangers just are not getting that production so far this year.
Yeah, it's lackluster. It's not what you want to see. And they're similar to the Knicks where they have high hopes and they're not performing to the ability that you would expect.
It seems like that's a New York theme. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Now it seems to be.
We're the best city in the world.
Right now it seems like a New York sports theme.
The best city in the world. No one can ever say anything bad about my glorious city of New York. We have the best sports, best everything ever. There's no argument there.
Maybe not right now. I mean, moving further south down to the Islanders.
Oh, we're going east.
Yep.
Going east now.
Yep. The Islanders also not a good season.
No, they're
41 points. They had play today. They play the Sharks today. But it's the same kind of stuff for the Islanders. I mean, they've as of recent never been as good as the Rangers have. The Rangers have always been in the last
the
5,
big brothers.
10 years, the big brother to the Isles.
They're essentially the Brooklyn Nets.
They are, but it's still important to talk. Well, they're playing like the Brooklyn Nets too, right?
For
now.
sure.
They just are not getting a good product on the ice, similar to the Rangers.
It's just shambles.
It's got to be frustrating for any New York hockey fan right now.
But then you look at a team like the Devils, where it's like a lot of the southern New York, like from Staten Island up. They're all Devils fans, and Devils are playing well. They're playing actually better hockey than you would expect. But you look at the Islanders. There's Anders Lee is essentially the only thing that team has, and he's not even playing fantastic. He's 36 points. It's not great. Still a better plus minus than Panarin, but it's just these teams aren't playing at the ability you would expect.
And again, it's the same story as the Rangers. Sorokin is having a good year. Save percentage 90, 2.87 goals against a game. I mean, he's having a good year. It's the same thing, though. You're not getting the product in front of him to be able to win these games. He's giving you his all back there in the net. He's giving you a great game back there. But you don't have the rest of your pieces playing to the capacity that you want them to be playing at to go and win games.
It's just overall, it's bland hockey from these teams.
It is. It really is.
Devils looking good though. Not
Devils
bad.
are looking good. Devils are I say this with an asterisk, the best New York team right now. The best New York hockey team right now. Asterisk for a reason.
You can't even put New Jersey and New York in the same conversation.
Yes.
New Jersey is New York's little brother. That's what that is.
The Devils are the best tri-state area.
There we go. I like the sound of that.
They are. They're playing the best hockey out of all three of these teams. There's a reason they're all grouped together.
Yeah, it's because New Jersey wants to be New York so bad. They're the Wish.com version of New York.
Well,
I just send shots everywhere. It's the truth.
Hey, that's all right. But yeah, they are playing the best out of all three teams.
Up 1-0 right now against the Flyers.
There you go.
First just finished. Yeah, I do my research. Don't worry about it.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm on the show for a reason. Come on.
No, they're second in the Met division.
I can barely talk hockey. I'm not the biggest hockey player.
They're second in the Met division with 58 points. They have a playoff outlook right now.
Yeah, they're only 7 points behind the Capitals. That's very doable to go get the 1 seed.
And the Caps are one of the best teams in the NHL right now. They are one of the teams to beat, which is
love to see it. Love to see it.
So the Devils, I mean, they have playoff hopes this year. Definitely more than the Rangers and Isles. I mean, I'm sure coming into this season, the Devils and the Rangers were pretty much put on the same platform.
Right.
But now it seems that there is a
there's a clear order.
There's a clear order. And New York hockey fans are not going to like to hear that. They're not going to like to hear that the Devils are on top of both New York hockey teams. I think they can both agree that they hate the jersey. Anything jersey. You've already said it.
Yeah, no, don't get me started.
You don't like jersey.
I literally just had a notification pop off on my computer. My dad was like, "New Jersey is a garbage market, and they shouldn't be."
That's hilarious.
It runs in the family.
It does.
He was like, "Why don't the Devils get more
Passed
PR?
down. It's genetic."
Yep. Why don't the Devils get more PR? It's because Jersey's a bad market, and it should stay that way. Jersey's not the market. No one wants Jersey.
Nobody wants Jersey. Well, Rangers struggling this season. Isles struggling this season. The Devils not so much. They are on top of the tri-state hockey world right now. That'll be all for our NHL talk. We got some big names in the MLB market.
This is the one right here. This is the one.
That is what we are going to hit when we come back from this break.
Hi, this is Mike Breen, WFUV class of 1983. WFUV is the flagship station of Fordham Athletics with live coverage of Fordham football, Fordham men's and women's basketball, in addition to Saturday one-on-one. Stay right here on 90.7 FM for all things WFUV sports.
And welcome back into One on One. It is time to take to the diamond. We're talking a little baseball here. We probably haven't had that in a minute. It is the off season, but big moves being made. Before we get into that, we want to hear from you.
Angel's getting ready back there.
We want to hear from you. Call in. The number 718-817-2750. I repeat, 718-817-2750. Give us your opinion. Give us your hot takes. Come debate us. Are the Yankees good or are the Yankees worse this year? We know our opinions in here. But before we get into the New York baseball landscape with the Mets and the Yanks, big free agent signing yesterday by the Dodgers. Roki Sasaki signed with the Dodgers. Who would have guessed? And this now they
Shambles.
got best pitching rotation in baseball, and it's not even close anymore.
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's unbelievable. It's kind of sick, but also kind of like, what are we doing at the same time? Just absolutely stacked. And I think the kind of underrated part about this Dodgers rotation is just how young it is, too. Roki's a teenager, right? You know? And this is just – or actually, no, sorry. Roki's 22. But the talent is going to continue to last. This isn't something that we're seeing from the Dodgers where they're pooling so much money into these big names that will be decent and then mid in 5 to 10 years. This is something that is an upfront investment, very expensive, is paying off now and will pay off later.
I think it's like, without a doubt, I see the Dodgers taking a little moonwalk to the World Series this year. It's like it's not even fun
Running
anymore.
it back.
It's bad. I would have bet that Roki was signing with the Padres.
Really?
But then I heard that they fell out of favor yesterday, and then yesterday evening comes in, Roki signed with the Dodgers. It
hurts too.
It's otherworldly.
It hurts too because they're not getting
You look
these guys.
1 through 40, and the whole Dodgers lineup is just nasty.
And these aren't rentals either. Like these are like
investments.
They're investments, and they're signing them for the long haul. Like Shohei, Roki, like these guys are not just 2-3 year deals.
They're turning into the remember the Warriors, like how they won their championships, and then look, there's KD.
Yeah,
that's exactly what's going on here.
It just feels unfair, honestly. Like the Dodgers get everyone.
It's 'cause they have so much money.
They have so much money.
That's where I see a flaw in baseball. It's you look at teams like the A's. The A's actually surprisingly they've been making moves.
Yeah, they got Leclerc.
But you look at what they've been like the past. They didn't spend any money. They were bottom. They had bad development. Then you look at teams like the Yankees. They had money. Then you look at like the Mets. Go pick up $800 million for Juan Soto. Steve Cohen's a dog. And now look at the Dodgers. They have insane. They're just insane.
It almost makes you wonder whether there should be a salary cap in baseball.
100%. I'm all for it. I'm like an old head with baseball. I don't like the extra inning rule. I don't like the openers. I like you have your starter go throw 9 innings and call it a day. I'm an old head. But I think that baseball needs a little bit of a change with that.
I would agree. I mean, I support a smaller market team in the Rangers, and we just got one a couple of years ago. But even like to that extent, it's like you can't look at teams like take Cleveland or the Rangers or like Oakland even, like these teams that don't necessarily have as much money, and then you look at the Dodgers and they're going out and paying Shohei $700 million and getting every big free agent signing, going and signing Blake Snell, trading for Glass now, and being able to afford all this easily. Like you can't really look at that and be like, yeah, like every team has the same chance, which is kind of ridiculous.
Crazy. It's just nuts.
When you talk about the Dodgers, and I feel like this could be a valid point, I think most teams, especially the bigger markets, like yes, LA is a big market. I think most teams, they have money. I don't think money is the issue here, even though you see the Dodgers always spending, so you think they are worth billions and stuff like that. Mind you, the richest owner in baseball is here in New York and with the Mets, right? So when it comes to money, I don't know that's the issue. They're just smart. I think they have the right people in their clubhouse and behind the scenes that make these decisions is why the Dodgers can potentially be a dynasty. And as a Yankee fan, that hurts to say, knowing that they just beat us for the World Series and they can continue winning them with this team and roster. But not only do they have smart businessmen at in the front office, their marketing is huge. Who doesn't want to be in the West Coast? Now you see all these names when it comes to players from Japan, and some people can say that they just want to follow what Ohtani is because that's the big name here in MLB.
The Yanks are planning around getting Murakami next year, but I feel like that's gonna be a bad bet.
They planned on getting every Japanese player for years since Tanaka, and you see what has happened. They all.
I don't know why the Yanks had to plan around getting Murakami next year, signing Goldschmidt to a 1-year deal, when you're banking on Murakami, who's not even going to sign. He's going to go to the Padres.
Who's the other options at first base this offseason?
Alonso.
Alonso.
No.
Christian Walker.
No.
What's wrong with Christian Walker?
Sorry.
What do you mean no?
Sorry.
What do you mean?
Walker has had good offensive years. I agree. But
you're telling me that swing wouldn't be perfect for Yankee Stadium?
At the age, I'm not giving him a long-term deal. I mean, he got 3 years from Houston. To me, he's an okay player. The only argument you could have made probably is Alonso because he's just turned 30 and wants 5 to 6 years of that. I still wouldn't want his production. There really wasn't a huge first baseman market.
Christian Walker is 30 home runs, a 250 average, and 85 ribbies, and Yankee Stadium is going to go up.
No, everyone in the Yankees has those kind of numbers. If you look at Stanton and them, okay.
Rizzo didn't have that last year.
Rizzo
like
that. Was bad. I agree. First base has always been an issue for the Yankees ever since Teixeira, honestly. But if you look at the future, you have Vlad, who's possibly a free agent who hasn't signed an extension. So that's a name that you think of. I know, but you start thinking of other free agent classes, how the first business market is going to shape.
Vlad's going to want a bag, and he's going to go and get a bag from whoever.
He is, but you also don't want to commit to somebody long-term now when you know there's better talent coming, right? You go for Kyle Tucker next year. You go for the Vlads. You go for players like that. So I get why the Yankees thought the way they thought with the rental for Goldschmidt. But going back to the thought with these Japanese players, when they come to America, they don't want to be in the cold. They don't want to be in, New York's not a small market, but they don't want to be in the East Coast, really. It's always a West Coast destination that it's desirable. It's just because of the weather, the marketing, everything. So the Dodgers are smart with that. They know that these players want to be there, so they're going to pitch themselves as best as they could. There's really no competition at this point. And I think that's the issue, is that all these players are preferring certain teams, and the rest of the league are not being, I don't want to, maybe as competitive as they should be to get these players, or they're not making the right pitch to acquire these talents. Or at the end of the day, we're just going to have the Dodgers with everybody and the rest of the league with nobody. And you can say big market or small market. I think every place and every team has a future that if you decide to go with them, anything can happen. But again, the Dodgers are the Dodgers, and
the Dodgers are turning into the evil empire. You know how the Yankees used to be called the evil empire?
100%.
It's turning into the Dodgers.
It's hard to watch.
They're the dark side of the force, and they need someone else to come in. They need to find the Jedis to come and strike them down.
Who's going to be that Jedi going forward? Is there any? I mean, there's no one right now.
Not right now. Mets.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that.
I'm not even trying to be a hater, but can we please look at their lineup outside of Lindor, Soto, and Vientos?
Well, that's a pretty big outside of 3 huge stars that are going to be yuck next season. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Vientos isn't even all that. Vientos is whack.
I wouldn't say the word whack to Vientos, but
Vientos was solid.
Let's really talk about it.
Starling Marte. Love this side.
Well, we don't even know if Alonso's going to come back. That's still up in the air.
It doesn't seem like he is. The Mets are preparing the rest of the offseason as if he's going to sign elsewhere.
They brought
Brandon
back
Nimmo.
Winker.
I don't like Brandon Nimmo, McNeil. I love Jesse Winker. MLB The Show 2019 Demon Jesse Winker. I hit so many home runs with his card.
They brought back Winker. They went out and got Minter. It doesn't look likely that Alonso's coming back.
The Mets rotation is so bad.
Also, they couldn't agree on a deal.
So bad.
They couldn't agree on a deal with Alonso. He wanted 3 years and with opt-outs. They didn't want any opt-outs.
So let's talk about it, right? The Mets offense, to me, it's not overall good, and I'm not trying to be biased here. I think they're like 2 to 3 players deep, and that's it. And then you look at the rotation, who they don't really have the
Their
best
number
rotation.
one being Senga isn't. I don't like the number
No,
one.
that's not even
starter being
that's not even the
Senga.
number one. It's Manaya, because he had a good year last year.
Not that number one. They're not putting Manaya out opening day.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's.
There's still names available.
Yeah, but they struck out on the Burns of the world, the Freeds of the world. You know, like they struck out on the Aces.
I wouldn't be surprised to go see him get like a Flaherty or something like that.
That's
I
their
love
best
Jack
bet.
Flaherty. Jack Flaherty is so underrated.
I agree.
He's a great
Like
player.
he did his thing when he got traded. Obviously, he did his thing in Detroit, but he did his thing when he got traded to the Dodgers. But the Mets, they have so many holes that for me to say that they are the next biggest competition to the Dodgers in the West or even in the league as a whole, I wouldn't say that right now. I know that the Phillies have been on and off in the playoffs. They still have the offense. They could figure out the pitching and the rotation.
They
I
got
think
Zach Wheeler. They're fine.
they have the aces.
Give me a healthy Braves team.
Give me a healthy
Braves.
Thank you. I like the Braves.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all.
Give me Matt Olson back to his 50 home runs. Give me Acuna on a
Matt
fully
Olson's my
healthy
favorite player in
season.
baseball right now.
Give me Acuna on 2 healthy ACLs finally. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
Can we see another 70 steal season?
Yeah. I think the Braves.
Ellie De La Cruz is so good.
Yeah, the Reds are decent, but look, you got like we just mentioned how the Mets could be pretty good when you still have the Phillies and Braves in that division, and I still don't think the Mets are NL East champions even this year. A fully healthy Braves or Phillies team, I think one of those teams is 1 and 2. You can easily see the Mets be the 3rd best team in that division.
The Mets are making the playoffs though. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
I'm not saying they won't make the playoffs. I think it's just another wild card situation.
Yeah, they're gonna run it back just like last year, I think.
And the wild card's going to be the NL East. It's going to be the top 3 teams.
But
in the NL
all I'm
East.
saying is just don't be surprised if the Mets are a average to mid team and not one of the best teams as people expect.
I don't know about that.
I hesitate to say that because
I don't know about mid.
that was the thought these past couple of years, and then they've exceeded expectations by a lot. So I find it hard to go back to that saying the Mets are only going to be a decent team. They're going to be around 500 because we've seen them after when they said they were rebuilding the next 2 years, we're not going to do anything, and then they go and make the playoffs.
When you look at the MLB right now, I feel like the NL is the East Coast of the NBA and the AL is the West, because it's just so top.
That's a good comparison. Yeah, I like that.
I think the NL has the Dodgers, Phillies, Braves, Mets, and that's really the powerhouses. And then you look at the AL, they have
AL's deeper.
AL's
It's deep.
Much deeper.
But
just in the AL East, you have the O's.
The Sox are sneaky this year.
They are.
The Sox are.
I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it.
Tristan Casas is.
Yuck.
He's a baller. You have
He's
those
a dog,
3.
brother.
Then you have the AL West, where the Astros are always going to be sneaky. The Angels just don't exist. The Angels aren't a real organization. The A's are going to be sneaky good, and the Mariners and the Rangers are great.
Great's a stretch.
Great
Hey now.
Great,
Great's a stretch.
great.
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Look,
we got a
on
top five
pa-
lineup.
On paper, the Rangers are good.
Yes, it's
On paper,
if we can stay
and
healthy.
on paper, the Mariners should be good.
Well, the Mariners can't put up runs.
They can't.
And then the
exactly.
AL
They can't
Central,
score.
the Tigers are coming back. The Tigers are going to come back, and they're going to come back with a vengeance. The Royals, they had a year to develop. They're going to be good because Bobby Witt will one day be an MLB, an AL MVP. And the Twins, the Twins are, but the Guardians are sneaky.
Guardians are
They were
legit.
just in the ALCS.
Yeah.
They're sneaky. They're not a big market team. You wouldn't expect that, but baseball right now is in a very good spot, except for the fact that the Dodgers are just whatever they are.
They are a juggernaut, and they're going to be one for years to come, especially with these players on long-term contracts, like previously said. I think right now the AL East, not the AL East, I think the AL is competitive, but it is.
It's not beating the Dodgers.
It could be.
No team could beat the Dodgers.
I don't know, because
know.
2 years ago we thought the Dodgers were going to have like a dog walk to the World Series, and then the Diamondbacks knocked them out.
And you know something? I think the Diamondbacks this year could be another sneaky team because
they picked up that big Corbin Burns pickup.
Last year, they led the league in runs, but they didn't make the playoffs. Is because they're pitching. They finally got an ace now, and if the same same roster. They added Naylor instead of having Walker back. So the Diamondbacks can be sneaky. Padres were good last year too. So not only is the Dodgers a juggernaut, watch out if they still win the NL, even in their division, let alone just the NL pennant. Because
the Diamondbacks also picked up Josh Naylor, which I think is a sneaky good pickup.
The NL West is sneaky right now. If the Dodgers are not healthy, if they're healthy, then
Even
it's
if
really
they
not.
they are healthy,
you
I think
think
there's
if
a chance.
I know. No.
Wait, a chance of what?
The Dodgers not running it all the way.
Or at least just winning their division.
They'll win the division, but
They'll 1,000% win the division.
I think there's a decent chance they crumble in the playoffs.
I don't hate that, but I'm betting the house on the division.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not yet.
It's their division to lose right now.
That's for sure.
But the playoffs.
The Padres made it close last year.
I'm just not high on them.
The Mets made it close last year.
Well, no, we were talking about division-wise, but yeah, like when
division-wise.
it comes to the CS, of course. But the Dodgers might look unstoppable, but that's what I love about baseball. There's always that unexpectedness and like unthinkable stuff that happens
Yeah,
towards the end.
You get hot at the right time, you can beat
Exactly.
anyone.
And that was
That's
the
for
Mets
sure.
of last
That's
year. They
baseball
got
right
hot
there.
in the right time, and you saw the Mets become hot and ride that into the CS.
That's the beauty of baseball.
I love baseball so much.
Anyone
I
can win
can't wait.
any given day.
I can't wait. We're about a month away from pitches and catches.
Yeah. It's
getting
exciting.
to that time of the year.
It's getting there. It's exciting stuff. It's very exciting stuff.
Once the semester starts closing down, that's baseball
starts
season.
ramping up.
Yup.
And we haven't talked about the Yankees that much, to be honest. And I know we got a couple of Yankees fans in here, but I mean they've been making some moves after losing out on Soto. But from what I've heard, Yankees fans aren't too disappointed because they took that money they would have spent and went and got a couple other options. They went and got Max Fried, traded for Devin Williams. They went and got Belly. I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Yankees fans don't hate that Soto's gone.
Absolutely not.
No. I think it was one. I mean, it was so dramatic from everyone, the whole Soto situation, and some Yankees fans coped and said, "Oh, it's too expensive." Oh, we didn't.
It was. I'm a coper.
Well, no, I don't. But I'm saying I don't think that's a cope necessarily. I think your head's in the right spot.
That's thinking logically here.
Well, it's the definition of all of your eggs in one basket.
We going back on the transactions, we also re-signed Jazz and saved Clark Schmidt and Scott Efros, which allow for another chance with a more solid bullpen because that terrorist Clay Holmes is gone. He's finally gone, and I feel like that allows for more time when the time comes, like trade deadline and later pickups for more pitching, because we got Loizaga, we got Devin Williams, we got Scott Efros. I feel like we're able to now possibly trade for a solid starter when the time comes.
I disagree when it comes to the bullpen. As much as I love my Yankee team, the bullpen is still a lot of work to go because we don't have a strikeout pitcher in the bullpen. And
Devin Williams is a strikeout pitcher, no? Is he not a strikeout pitcher?
He's a contact. Most of the guys in the bullpen are contact pitchers. And sure, let's just have Williams in the conversation that he's the strikeout guy. That is your closer. Coming to playoff time, right? It's a
Hamilton.
No, he's not a strikeout guy. 6th, 7th inning. When you need a strikeout, you don't need the ball. You can't have the ball put in play. You don't have an option. That's why I still want the Yankees to make moves in terms of like signing a Tanner Scott, and who's still a free agent. They need to get someone who they strike out batters more than they put the ball in play. That's what you need, because the Yankees bullpen throughout the years are sinker ballers, slider ballers, and they pitch to contact. And we saw how bad the defense was last year and even in the playoffs. So I'm not saying that the defense hasn't really improved either yet. So you can't bank on the ball always being in play and guaranteeing an out with the Yankees. So you need at least a guy or two who you put in the game, and more likely than not, he gets 3 batters, there's 2 strikeouts at least.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the New Year's Eve ball drop a little early last year. I do remember that one.
Oh, thanks.
Wow.
Thank you so much for that.
Nice.
Thank you. It had to come from
You
somewhere.
can't be sending shots like that when we have a Red Sox fan sitting right next to me.
I have no problem with the
It's
Sox.
gonna get aggressive.
I have no problem with the Sox. He didn't say it. I did. He didn't say it.
I just supported it.
He let me come forward that one. But that is gonna do it for our baseball segment. We're gonna be back with a little bit of mixed bag. Gonna come in, get to know us, some interesting questions from our guys back behind the scenes. But we will be back with that in just a moment.
Hi, this is Michael Kay, WFUV class of 1982. WFUV is your home for all things Fordham athletics, with live coverage of Fordham football, Fordham men's and women's basketball, in addition to our Saturday show, One on One. Stay right here on 90.7 FM for all things WFUV sports.
And welcome back to our final segment on today's show on One. We are here. We're done chopping it up about sports. It's time for a little mixed bag segment. And Angel, who you heard in the last segment talking about the Yanks, is going to hop on with us and give us some questions. Angel, you there?
Of course. It's one of my favorite segments that we started in the summer. Are you guys ready for this first question?
Yes.
Given that it's, NFL playoffs and that's the big thing right now, I want to know what you guys prefer. Would you rather a Chiefs three-peat or one of the newer teams win for the first time?
New team.
New team.
Yeah.
What?
I'm
Really?
sick of this Chiefs dynasty. New team in a heartbeat. The Chiefs are the modern day Pats. They're
That's
that's
disrespectful.
that's crazy because
disrespectful.
that Pats team was way better than this Chiefs team.
I'm talking
And I don't
about
like
I'm
the
talking
Pats.
about by the amount that like the rest of the country dislikes them.
I think people I thought people hated the Patriots more.
I agree.
I think after all this Taylor Swift coverage, I think football fans are starting
How
to
about
hate.
this?
I think that got them mixed reviews.
Yes. So I think America's more annoyed with the Chiefs. America
Hated the
Patriots.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah, I think that's a good
that,
distinction.
That was just a little bit of word changes there that helped out, but for sure.
It's the journalism right there.
Journos, talk to him.
When you think about it, the Chiefs three-peat, that's historic, right? Like, who doesn't want to see history in football? But then also, if you have,
I don't want to see it.
But
I think we got a consensus.
Damn, my fault. I thought, me personally, I wouldn't have mine either scenario. I'm also annoyed with the Chiefs though, so like, I'm more of I want either the Bills or Lions to win. So don't attack me here backstage.
A Lions Super Bowl would feed families.
Yes.
Oh,
Feed
for
my
Or
family.
Bills.
Oh yeah, for sure. Either one for sure.
Shout out that boy Josh.
So we got our next question from our video producer Brian. He's gonna give y'all this one.
Who do you think is the MVP of the season? Do you think it's Josh Allen, or you wait? Can you hear me? Oh. Or Lamar Jackson?
It's Josh.
That boy Josh. I mean, I think especially the double thrown and rush TD back in November,
That killed me in fantasy.
which was
Oh
electric.
my God, yes.
That killed me in fantasy.
Yeah, he's on a generational run this season. I like Lamar, but Josh is taking MVP this year, Brian.
I think according to stats, it's Lamar.
Actually,
It might be. It might be.
Actually,
If it's numbers, it's Lamar.
if it's according to stats, Dak would have won it last
Saquon.
year. If it's according to stats, Dak
It's
would
also
have won it
according to
last
stats,
year.
It's essentially Saquon. but
right.
I don't even think it's Saquon.
If I'm talking about strictly numbers, it's between Lamar
Strictly
and
numbers,
Saquon.
but you can't go based off. They've never gone strictly off numbers.
They haven't given it to a running back since Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't be that case because someone like Saquon should be considered more. And
if we talk about who's gonna win it, it's gonna be Josh Allen.
Should be Josh.
If we talk about who should win it, it should be Saquon or Lamar.
Should be Josh.
I don't
see what he's doing with who he's doing it with. He's got
nobody. No one expected the offense to be anywhere near a 2 seed in the AFC.
I knew people that were predicting that they weren't going to win the division. They thought the Jets and the Dolphins were both going to be better than the Bills.
The Dolphins are a bunch of frauds.
I mean, they had
before the season
quarterback.
They had high expectations.
They have a quarterback who needs to retire.
I don't know about that.
Medically, yeah.
One more concussion and that man's gonna be.
Save your life.
No, I get it. Yeah,
Save
you
it
might
for
as well
him.
save your life. But hey, let him keep playing football. So this next question,
Sounds like some.
we're gonna switch from football. We're gonna go into some basketball. I know you guys know about the drama with the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler. Do you think by the trade deadline he is no longer Miami Heat, or does he stick the season and then we'll find out in the offseason what happens?
Pat Riley's out for blood. I'm sorry, Pat Riley is out for blood. He's gonna make that man stay on this team for the rest of the season, and then he's gone.
I think he sticks the season too. I don't think anyone's willing to give up a whole lot for him.
He stays on.
And I think Pat Riley's not gonna let him go. I think Pat Riley's gonna do it out of spite.
He'll leave in the offseason, but I think he stays for the rest of the season.
Pat Riley's gonna make him suffer this year.
They're both prideful people, which is like the issue. Like they don't want to give in to either one.
I'm sorry, but what Jimmy Butler is doing is just straight up disrespectful to a franchise and to a team. You have 12 other guys on your team, and you're the one out here being selfish and not putting yourself. You're putting the team ahead of yourself. That's not a player I want on my team, and that is just outright disrespectful. Especially to do it to a legend like Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra. That's horrible. He's a horrible locker room presence. Everywhere he goes, turns into a dumpster fire. And I despise this man for what he's been doing to all the teams that he works with.
Somebody clip this man. That was clip worthy. Wow. Next question is gonna go back to Brian.
I don't know about you guys, but I think the Cavs are a fake team. I don't think they're actually going to go far. But some people say they are. But out of the East or the West, who do you think is like a sneaky team that might make it to the final?
Nuggets.
I like Nugs.
I like
Nugs.
They're not full on sneaky team, I would say, but like looking at Russ's production so far, based off Jokic's incredible year like he does every single year, they're my sneaker pick.
I don't know why, but I don't hate the Pistons.
Wow.
We're talking
Or
about
the Grizz.
We're talking about making it to the finals.
Oh, finals like you're not just talking about a playoff run.
No,
I mean-
playoff run Grizzlies would feed fans. bro.
That would feed families for sure. But
T-Wolves.
If I see Ja catching bodies in the finals,
bang, 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 brother. Yeah.
Oh my! I can already picture Ja Morant throwing one down on KP's head.
I mean, he already yammed it on Wemby the other
That
night.
was
Nasty.
embarrassing.
That was brutal.
That was insane. But yeah, finals run. I like the picks with the Denver Nuggets, but the Pistons was crazy.
I don't hate it
playoffs.
'cause
Yes, they can make the play-in for sure.
Yeah.
I think they could beat the Cavs. I do.
the Cavs are a good
Well,
team.
I think the Cavs are.
Cavs are a good team, man. I mean, you got
They're frauds though.
You got D. Mitch and Garland both out there. shooting over
Darius Garland
40% from
disappears
three.
in the playoffs though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell doesn't.
No, yeah, that man doesn't.
Spider's nasty.
Should have saw him in Utah. I was hurt as an OKC
Bubble
fan.
playoffs. One of the best series of all time.
Well,
Jazz Nuggets.
While on the topic of the bubble, while working for the Westchester Knicks, I was talking to T.J. Warren. Bubble T.J. Warren.
Bubble
legend.
TJ was different.
Bubble T.J. put up 53.
Wow.
Crazy to see that man.
The
playing
bubble
in the
did
G League.
crazy things to people.
For real.
It's
But that was some
sad
true.
seeing him in the G League
That was
now.
some true basketball. All right, we got time for one more question. I'm gonna go right back to Brian for this one.
All right, hit us, Brian. What you got?
Before I ask my question, Memphis are going to go far. I believe in Ja and Jaren Jackson Jr., by the way.
Come on now.
There we go.
Let them know, Brian.
My final question of the day is, who do you think next year is for next year in the NFL, who do you think is gonna be like the surprise team that nobody expects is gonna come hot and the Lions? Nobody expected the Lions to be this good right now.
I like that question.
I really like that question.
Mike Vrabel's New England Patriots.
That's wild.
No, I'm totally kidding.
Oh my!
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
I was gonna say it depends on how the draft goes. I don't hate it.
I hate that
brutally.
I don't think it's gonna happen at all.
I think they're gonna be better than people expect. I don't think they're gonna be like a playoff team, wildcard team. They're gonna just be better than people expect.
I really don't.
Okay, how about the
Washington.
Titans?
Well, does that really count as a surprise anymore?
I was gonna say, how much of a surprise is the Vikings?
They're
not
not a surprise. They're not a surprise.
The Titans. I'm on the Titans.
Why?
I mean, think about it. They got
Dallas football.
They got the #1 pick. They're going Cam Ward. They'll have a quarterback. They have some weapons.
You think they're going Cam Ward?
Yeah. They have.
You don't think they're gonna screw the Giants over and go get Shador?
No, I don't think. I hope
you
not.
don't think Shador is gonna fall to the Giants?
No, I think he goes to the Browns second.
And what, Travis Hunter to the Giants?
Yeah. Well, actually, no. In the Giants, they'll pick someone else.
Pick up
They'll
Ashton
screw that
Genty
pick
with the
up.
4.
They'll screw that pick up.
The
But
3.
they got weapons. They got Ridley out there. The defense isn't bad. And I don't know. It's my sleeper pick. It's my sleeper pick.
Do you think the Commanders count as a sleeper?
No,
not anymore.
Not after a 13-win season.
I love him. I love Jaden Daniels.
Yep. Caleb, what's your actual pick? Non-Patriots.
He's thinking. You could see the gears turning.
It would be nice to see Joe Burrow just completely dominate next season.
Yeah.
That would be sick. So I'll go with the Bengals.
All right.
Bengals championship incoming?
Well,
next year,
that would be awesome.
They gotta keep
but
T, though.
Unfortunately, that's going to be all from us here today on this edition of One on One. If you missed any of our segments from today's show, be sure to check out WFUV Sports YouTube page, and you'll find everything you're looking for there and more. Fellas, what a pleasure it was to be on the show with y'all today. The sports director of WFUV is Bobby Chaffardini. Our video producer was Brian Zhao. Our radio producer was Angel Ducret. For Caleb Stine and George Sfouggatakis, I'm Brendan Shorey saying thanks for tuning in and see y'all later. One on One is a production of WFUV Sports.